A 2022 Politico poll asked American voters whether the Constitution allows the government to declare the United States a Christian nation. To be clear, the First Amendment plainly forbids this. While a little over half of conservative voters, 57%, said that such an act would be illegal, nearly half of conservative voters, 43%, said that such an act would be legal. The truly shocking part, however, was that 61% of conservatives went on to say that they supported such an action. So let's do the math. While only 43% thought it would be legal, 61% said that it should be done. This means that nearly 20% of conservatives in America know that it would be illegal, but think that government officials should just go ahead and do it anyway. This view isn't limited to just the uneducated masses. Thousands of government officials have echoed this sentiment by knowingly calling for an illegal takeover of the government. One official not only argued that America is a Christian nation, but claimed that separation of church and state is, in his words, a myth. Another prominent official said, "I say it proudly, we should be Christian nationalists," and announced that they would start selling Christian nationalist shirts. These officials are engaging in extreme gaslighting on this issue and many others in order to keep themselves in power and test the waters for a possible path to a Christian nationalist takeover of the United States. When you step back and look at this effort, brought into focus by Project 2025, a direct line from the rise of Christian nationalism to the current administration murdering civilians in the streets of Minneapolis becomes crystal clear. Disagree? Call us, because the show starts now.
That is right, everybody. We are back for another show. Today is February 1st, 2026, and the start of Black History Month, actually. How cool is that, you guys?
Very cool. Very cool.
I am your host, Secular Rarity, and joining me right now is the man who always drops some wonderful openers, Cross-Examiner. What's up, dude?
Hey there. How's it going? I'm thrilled to be here with you. I always have a great time when you're on, and I can watch you work.
Oh, thank you. I'm very animated. I have a different format today, so I have a little bit more room with my arms and shoulders, I feel like. So it's very nice to just stretch out a little bit. You can also see that the wall behind me just blank, just completely blank. So now, all that mystery is gone away. Like, what is on the other side?
This is all very cheap vinyl paste on stuff.
But you got the books and stuff, and that makes you look, and then you got the little bust of somebody, and it just looks great. Who is that, by the way?
That's Einstein.
Einstein.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, good. Maybe he'll call in today.
Yeah.
There's at least one person out there that's like, why did he say that? Like, Einstein's been dead for so long. Like, how did he? Anyway, hey guys, thanks so much. This is the Atheist Experience. It's a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And if any of those things, by the way, if you just like picked out one of those and were just like, I really hate that, I think that is a bad thing, and we should stop it, then call us, because that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about it. And we do have some people calling in, but we've got a lot more open lines, you guys. So go ahead and get them in. Before we get to anything else, just because I haven't seen you in forever, Cross-Examiner, how you been? What you been up to? Been working hard?
I've been doing work, real work, not just podcast stuff.
Right. You're a supposedly legally trained
legal person.
Yes,
I'm licensed to practice law in Maryland and in the federal, of course. If I can practice in Maryland, I can practice anywhere. And I use that to opine on things occasionally. But recently I've been very it's a strange mix of despair and optimism. Despair in the short term and optimism for the future.
I feel that too. And that's such a weird thing, because I feel like in a lot of ways, many of which I'm not going to go into, but in a lot of ways, I feel like there's some good reason to not be very happy at the moment. But also, I don't know, I'm feeling like this kind of bubbling up sense on a grassroots level. It feels like people are thinking more in the future and trying to, hey, if we're not going to be able to get food or water or clothing or shelter. And in these ways that we have in the past, we're gonna look to newer things, which
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of. You know, by the way, there is this really cool place I've heard of. It is it's a book depository of sorts where one's ideas or imaginations are unconstrained, as they say. Some would call it a free thought library.
Oh, wow.
And apparently,
Tell me more.
yeah, well, it is down in this little town. You might not have heard of it. Just on the edge of society, called Austin, Texas, where you can actually go hang out regularly and just have a good time with a bunch of atheists and non-religious people. You can go and talk philosophy. You can actually come to the studio live to watch these shows every Sunday and hang out and have a cool, fun experience. But you can also just go for game nights or to watch a movie or just look at the stars together or go grab some food. So that is an awesome, awesome way to get involved with some cool people. And if you don't believe me, you will you just have to go check it out. It's a real building.
I didn't believe you for the longest time.
Really?
And then I went there for the
there.
Bat Cruise last year.
Yeah.
And I'll admit it when I'm wrong. It does exist.
And that's the other thing too, bats. I mean, you throw all this other stuff in and then you're like, yeah, and there's like 1.5 million bats on this bridge. And people are like, that's just crazy. This sounds like some made up, Wakanda style, world or something. It's not, it's real.
Everybody's
Wakanda.
just okay with the bats. It's weird.
Yeah, everyone's just fine. Nobody's really that. No, in fact,
they're not
very
freaking out.
No, they're very, very helpful. They stay in their own little bat space and they do their little bat thing. And yeah, you just kind of deal with it, I guess. I don't know. I guess it's better than what Tennessee has, which is just like
the Ark?
That's Kentucky. They're a little bit above
okay,
us.
I get them mixed up.
No, we've got right now it's just cold. That's what we've got.
Oh, yeah,
Oh my gosh, what is this, dude? When is it gonna get warm again? Oh my God.
Don't worry, many officials came out and used this as clear evidence that global warming and global climate change.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, that's
like Nashville gets
weather is the same as climate. Yeah.
Nashville gets like an inch of snow for a week and then
therefore
like all of the hard
billions of hours of research go out the window.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, look, guys, obviously, Cross Examiner and I, we're we're open, we're here, and we can be persuaded if you can bring us some interesting information and some evidence that maybe opens our eyes or turns us away from our sinful behavior. I mean, look, honestly, just the other day, I got this, and I want to know if people can see it well. So I could feel the devil because I got this receipt for $66.60, you guys. So I went grocery shopping and I just, I felt Satan there next to me. And it's nice to know that he's looking out for you.
Did he have any coupons?
And that's the frustrating thing. It was like, dude, devil, like, what are you doing? And he's like,
they're high, right?
Just jacked up the prices of your milk again. I was like, oh no, I thought. Anyway, we do have some wonderful calls.
Okay.
I am excited to get to. I think some of these will be nice and fun. We are going to go out to Oklahoma. We're going to talk with Mason, theist, he, him pronouns, and wants to talk about God. Well, hey, Mason, how are you? Are you staying warm? I think it's probably cold in Oklahoma too.
Yeah, it's been a bit cold lately. We got a bunch of snow.
I hear that's where the wind comes rushing down the plain.
Yes, and snow too, apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, what you got for us, Mason? You want to talk about God?
Yeah, I know it's kind of general, but I have a friend who's a big fan of your show, and he's an atheist, and we had a lot of conversations over the summer, and he told me I should call the show, and so I was like, I'll do it. But
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but first of all, can you give us your friend's name? Are you comfortable doing that so we can give him a shout out?
Oh yeah, David.
Hey, David. Thank you for referring
David.
Mason.
Thanks, David.
Mason already sounds like a pretty chill dude.
Yeah. So what, like, I guess, again, you're right, Mason. God, big topic, right? I guess when you say God in general, what are you thinking of? Are you thinking of Catholic? Does it come to you from a Hindu perspective? Is it more Allah? Just give us a quick summation, like, hey, this is kind of where I'm at with my belief on that.
Right, right. I grew up, I guess, non-denominational Christian, so I guess evangelical. That's where I'm at now. I have had some experience with Catholicism, and I actually do appreciate a lot of it. I grew up actually kind of thinking poorly of Catholics, but it's been a bit of a journey this last year. So I've come to appreciate it. But yeah, I guess that's where I'm at now. Okay. And when I think of God, I mean, you know, I think of he's been, you know, there for me. So
yeah, I have a ton of different routes I could think about going down, Mason. There's one though that I've really been on this kind of bent for a little while, because I think there is a lot of value with non-religious and religious people working together for common goals and shared values, right? Whether or not you believe there's an afterlife or I have a soul, that to me isn't as important as how you behave in society, right? If what you're saying to me is, you know, look, SR, I go to church every so often. I read the Bible, you know, it makes me feel good. And honestly, I'm okay with that. And I don't really want to push back on that. I don't want to try and upset that or anything. No worries, you know. If that belief, though, is causing you to go out there and actively hurt people in various ways, like, say, I don't know, specifically targeting a community and saying they're like, you know, demonic or, you know, trash or something. Those are the things that really, really matter to me. That being said, if you're like, hey man, no, honestly, like I'm not doing anything like that, but I'd love to have my belief challenged, we'll do it, man. We'll push back on it. So where would you like to go on that, man? What are you thinking?
Oh man, I'm not sure. I guess. I get what you're saying.
Let me ask this, and this is not a great question, but I'm just going to ask it this way: like, are you out there actively like trying to persecute, you know, LGBTQ people in the name of God?
Just say, you can laugh at that,
but it is true.
We've had people who said yes.
Yes, there are many people that are like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. So.
Yeah, no, I would say no.
Okay. Cool.
Well, let me ask a question then.
Yeah,
that might help frame it then. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Mason. I didn't mean.
I was just going to say. I mean, different people have different definitions of, you know, harming and what hurts people. I do think that being able to talk about my own opinions. I've had people say that that's harmful. I remember actually this was very recently. I got to go on a trip and I went to Italy, and it was really great. And I was there. It was me and my wife, and we were there with my family. And me and my wife had this argument with my brother and his wife. And we went and we spent like hours arguing. We were like, it got heated, and then it went well. And then by the end of the conversation, we were like having dinner together. And I remember we were talking about LGBT and all that stuff. And by that point, the conversation actually was going very well. And I remember there was this family who was sitting like in a table next to us that was from Australia. And they piped up and they said, hey, stop talking about that. Like, that's, you know, stop talking about these things here. And that's harming people. That's what my sister-in-law told us. And so to me, It was, you know, that's never pleasant to have random strangers tell you to stop. And that's harming people and all that stuff. For sure.
And there's a difficult line to walk there for sure, right? Like, yes, you're out in public, and so, you know, they're entitled to a good night just like you are, right? Like, I don't want to be standing up on the table, you know, ripping my shirt off, screaming and yelling, you know, but there's a balance in there. People should be able to talk, and, you know, yeah, I don't know. Are there any views that you think that you have about the LGBTQ community, for instance, that are specifically derived from your belief in God? Like, if you didn't believe in the God you currently believe in, would these views change?
I would say yes. my
Oh,
my
cool.
beliefs do. Like they would
Let's
change
talk
if I
about
didn't
that
believe in
then.
God.
Yeah. What are
'Cause,
some of those
yeah,
things?
I guess my belief is that, to put it all simply, I believe it's not good for people, and I believe that because I believe that the Bible says that, you know, it's not
Okay.
good for people, which is why
Okay, fair
God
enough.
says
One of the
don't
things,
do
just
that.
a real quick question. What we're working into is oftentimes these calls turn into philosophical discussions about belief and justification, and I think that's where we're going. So a common question you'll hear us ask, which is where we've gone, is what do you believe, but more importantly, why?
Mhm.
And you've just cited one thing. I believe this because the Bible says so, if I understood you correctly. Did I understand you to say
Mhm.
that you believe that because the Bible says a thing, that you agree with that thing?
As far as I can understand it, yes.
Okay. Why
So,
is that?
yeah.
Why do you
Great question.
believe what the Bible says is true and accurate and should be carried out?
Right. Well, I guess I believe that God gave it to us to, tell us what He wants us to, to give us the stories and for us to know who He is.
Sure.
And why
Makes
do you
sense.
believe
It
that
is.
God gave it to us? Like, what, not why do you believe why He did it, but why do you believe that God, in fact,
Mhm.
gave it to us?
I mean, like his motives. I mean, because He loves
No,
us.
no,
But I
not his
imagine that's probably
motives.
not what you're asking.
No, I'm asking the
Yeah.
question of you believe that A, there's a God, and B, He did something. Why do
Mhm.
you believe that there is a God that did that thing? Not his motives, but
Right.
what evidence do you have that God gave us the Bible?
Right. Right. I mean, to be honest, I'm not. I'm mostly just because that's how I was raised. It's what was, given to me, and I'm
Mhm.
really thankful that it was what I was taught, and I believe it for myself at this point.
Yeah.
But
So
mostly,
if
I'd say the reason. Oh,
no,
the
please.
reason I believe it for myself now is just because I've seen God work in a lot of different ways in my own life at this point. So that's why
Fair
I
enough.
believe it.
If it said in the Bible to go to your neighbors and enslave them and beat them like your property, would you do that, Mason? Like if it was clear that that was what was in there, it was written as a command direct from God. Like, would you just start doing that?
Well, I suppose it
It's
depends a lot on the context. I would say no, but it
okay,
depends a lot
right.
on
It's
the
not
context,
really a
of
trick
course.
question, honestly, man. It's not really a trick question because what I'm trying to get at is that there are a lot of different commands in the Bible, right? Like there's a lot of
Mhm.
things that the Bible says to do and not to do very, very explicitly. And it seems to me that this command, supposedly, I'm just kind of going with you here, man, about how homosexuality is harmful, right? um it seems like this command falls into some of those commands that don't really make a lot of sense anymore, like not eating shellfish 2000 years ago when refrigeration and proper understanding of bacteria wasn't established. Like when that shit didn't exist, it was probably a really good idea not to eat shellfish, man. They can get contaminated very quickly, right?
Yeah.
I could even understand somebody making an argument about, well, small tribe in the middle of nowhere, it's better to promote heterosexual coupling so that more babies. Yeah, fine, whatever. I don't know. I kind of think human beings fuck more than enough to take care of any amount of homosexual behavior, right? But it seems to me that there are definitely some things in the Bible that it's commanding that I really doubt you give much thought about. And I'm wondering why this one particularly. Is there something special about it? Does it hit more close to home? Have you had some experience in life? Why this one and not the mixed fabrics?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
I think it's definitely right. Yeah, the mixed fabric. I know what you're talking about. I think there are definitely some things that are more serious than other things in the Bible,
Okay.
and I think this is one of them. And anything when it comes to sexuality, generally that's important.
Why is there? I think I'm following with, like, there's like a hierarchy of these commands. Which one's more important? And I could understand that, like, you know, again, like the mixed fabrics or planting crops in the same field. Like maybe Yahweh is not as particular about that, right? Why is this one up at the top? Why is sexuality so important?
I think it's because it's one of the most, well, not the most, obviously. Killing someone is probably a little more harmful, but it is one of the more harmful ones, like to you as a person. And I don't just mean homosexuality, but any sort of sexuality that is not the way that God has, you know, intended for it to be done.
Right. But does God definitely has some times where he's like kind of cool with killing people, right? Like innocent people too, right? Like he seems to be okay with
going
that.
back to the sexual part, let's combine something you asked earlier, right? So I'm assuming you would think that let's combine the slavery question with the sex question. Sexual slavery would be wrong, correct?
Yes.
Like taking somebody as property so that you could have sex to them and pass them on to your children as property. That would be horrible, right?
I think I see where you're going with this. There's isn't there a story where they take some of the?
It's not just a story. It's not just a story. Now, let me be clear. I'm not quoting a story. I'm quoting the law.
Right.
So when you go look at various sections, Exodus 21, Deuteronomy, there's a couple other places, they have two different sets of rules. What can you do to slaves who are your fellow Hebrews, and they have their own set of rules. But then there's a whole other set of rules that says you may take slaves from the nations around you, which is what SR was talking about when he said go over to your neighbor's house and take a slave. And those people are treated like the slaves that you're familiar with from U.S. slavery. You can beat them to the point of death. You can have sex with them. They are property. If the sexual slave that was sold to you doesn't please you, you must sell it back to the owner. There's all very, very specific laws that Yahweh gave to the people as to how to handle their slaves. That to me seems like a really, really bad thing for a God to do, to say, not only did he not say you shouldn't own other people as property, like you just make that the 11th commandment. Not only did he fail to do that, he endorsed slavery by saying, treat your Hebrews this way, but go grab these people from other nations and rape them, pass them on as property. You own their kids as property. How do you square that circle with a God that you think, I assume you've said, is presumably a good being, endorsing this stuff and saying not only can do this, but in the stories you're citing should do this? How do you square that out?
Right. Well, and I think I remember the ones you're talking about. For me personally, I would say that that's not the only way to interpret it, but can't remember.
How would you interpret it? I'll look it up, and then you can tell me how to interpret the exact black and white letters of this law. These are the laws, right? The laws of Yahweh given to his people about what to do. So hopefully we know, as an attorney, it's my job to recognize that language is tricky. It's kind of questionable why God chose a language that was, has natural human problems of interpretation and growing old and dying out and all that stuff to put the most important message of the universe down in. But putting that aside, the law that he wrote is a list of things that you may do, things that you must do, and the things that you can't do. And those are very, very clear terms. So I'll look it up while you let me know what your take on that is.
Yeah. Let me preface it too by saying that I think tradition and interpretation are very important because everyone has a different tradition and a different interpretation. People have been arguing about what Scripture says for thousands of years. They were doing it.
I agree with you on all that, by the way. I imagine Cross-Examiner would too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think a lot about, like, when Jesus came and he had a lot of hard words to say to the Pharisees who were the experts. And they were like, oh, we know what the interpretation is. And he's like, no, you don't. But and they had their own traditions that they put on it. We all come from our own traditions. It's how we see the lens through the Bible. So, but I think the way it goes, like say the commandment about, if your slave doesn't get up on the third day,
right?
Isn't that how it goes?
Beat your slave within 3 days.
Beat them as long as they get up by the third day and don't die.
Yeah.
They may be maimed for the whole life.
Right.
They may have lost a leg. They may not be able to see anymore. But if it's your property, that's your property.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. If I remember correctly, it has something to do with the section that comes before it, because I think there's a section that talks about punishment for
oxen
harming or killing a slave. I think actually oxen too.
So
I read an article about it like months ago.
Yeah, there is actually some stuff in that legal code about punishing the slave masters who go too far. But the uncomfortable reality of those laws is that they are a lot closer to the way slavery was governed in the antebellum South in the United States than people want to admit. Dr. Joshua Bowen has done extensive research on this and has compiled this phenomenal book a long time ago about whether or not the Bible endorses slavery. And it goes through that stuff very clearly. And the reason why those laws exist is not because the lawgivers, quote unquote, thought of slaves as equal or thought of them as really deserving any protection under the law at all. It was just so that people didn't just go around randomly murdering people's slaves. It wasn't about attempting to try to bring this group of people into the rest of society. It was explicitly the opposite. In fact, it was technically you did kill that thing over there, but it's only a slave, so it's not that big of a deal, but I'm sorry, Cross, I think you had pulled
let's just read the literal words. Let's step I don't think there's anything I could tell you that would say, if the United States passed a law that said I could go grab people from different states, bring them to my house and beat them until they're almost dead, that in any way you would say that was morally justified, right? Even if we also had a law that said, and if you do kill them, we're going to fine you 30 shekels, right?
Right.
Or whatever. Even if you do kill them, we're going to put you to death. It still wouldn't be a just law. It would be one of the most immoral things on the planet. But let's just look at, just to set up, to prove to you, this is not a story. This is the law. You look in Leviticus 24:47, or let's do 45 and 46. This is the part that talks about buying people that are not your Hebrew neighbors. You may buy, this is the part about temporary residents living among you. You may buy them. Those are people from a foreign nation. They will become your property. And then 46 says, quote, you can bequeath them to your children as inherited property and can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. So this is black and white language. You can buy foreigners, you can make them your property, they will be property for life, and you can will them to your children, but you can't do that to your fellow Israelites. How is this not the most immoral, tribalistic, cruel rule for any God to lay down in the history of mankind? I need you to explain that to me.
Sorry, what was the verse again you quoted just now?
Leviticus 25, verses 45 and 46. I'm using the NIV. I don't know if you use a different version.
Pretty much all of them will give you about the same, unfortunately, right? Yeah.
The focus is on 46. 45 is the setup that says, hey, you can buy foreigners.
Yeah.
And then 46 says, here's how you treat them, but don't do that to Israelites.
And I want to put a pin in this just for a second, Mason. We'll get back to this point, okay? Because I want to finish this with cross-examiner, because I think this is very important about the tradition and the history and the interpretation and so forth. That's what I want to come back to in a little bit, okay? Yeah. About where we get that tradition and that interpretation and so forth. But help us out with those verses, Leviticus.
Right. Actually, I'm not familiar with this section. I had something to say about Exodus earlier, but honestly, I don't know how to explain this one.
It's a primary
because
deception, man.
It's a bummer. That's why we go to it.
Yeah,
Most like when you go to Bible study,
Yeah.
what do they teach you? They don't start with Leviticus 25. You know, they start with the Gospels, which is nice stories about baby Jesus. And if Jesus's character was anything, he was a healer. He was a friend of children. He's a nice character.
Yeah.
But when you read the story as a whole and you realize where it came from, like prior to the Old Testament, we had oral tradition that was made up by illiterate goat herders who didn't know where the sun went at night. And over time, those stories got written down about this Yahweh character. And they infused this belief system with their own laws. I think it's Betsy Ross who said, I distrust those who so often claim to know the will of God, as I find it that God's will always coincides with their own, right? So when I create my religion and I say what God says, rarely do I find somebody who says, I think God wants to do all of these things, and I disagree with him entirely, but I believe that God exists. You don't find that person. So they make these laws, they infuse them with their actual religion, and now your religion is your laws. That's why they are Moses's laws. You can go look them up in the Old Testament. Here's all the laws of how to behave. This is part of it. And then somebody realized later on, like a Hollywood script team needed to punch this story up. We need a savior character. We prophesize a Messiah. Let's have, Bible part 2. And this guy's going to be a nice guy. But does he ever say, let's do away with Leviticus? Let's do away with slavery? No, the New Testament quote I recall is, slaves, obey your masters. Not from Jesus. I think that was that Paul maybe?
Yeah.
But you never see a doing away of this law, because a lot of people will come in and say, well, that was Old Testament. And then I still have questions like, so the Old Testament God was bad and evil, but he changed his mind? But skipping over that, Jesus says,
I did have something to say that.
I do not come to abandon the laws or change the laws, but to fulfill them, and not a jot or tittle shall change until all things have come to pass. Right. And last I checked, all things have not come to pass. So Jesus is in the New Testament is caught in that legal trap of not being able to say, ignore what God said for the last 3,000 years. I'm changing it all. So under this story arc, we still have this problem of the Yahweh character made these laws about slavery. Nothing in the Bible changes that or shows that Yahweh has changed his mind. And then we have lots of stories from the Bible that show these rules being carried out. That's the end of my sort of summary of this. I know that is not what a pastor teaches you when you go to Bible study class, because they, quite frankly, are not comfortable with it themselves.
Yeah. And I think even if, Mason, even if you were, and I'm not going to beat you up for this, man. It's a big freaking book. There's a lot in it, there's a lot of history to it. And, even if you were super familiar with this passage, and like, let's say you had done an entire 6-month course on Leviticus, and you gave us this beautiful, glowing, fantastic interpretation that makes this stuff, so much better and less harmful. And we can now justify not just being jerks to people and hurting them. Why can't we also find that same interpretation for the homosexuality passages? In fact, I've heard many interpretations. When I was growing up in the church, I did take some classes where we did go over some of these things. And one of the specific passages we went over is about the whole man shall not lie with another man as he lies with woman thing. And at least in this interpretation, what that passage is actually discussing is more something akin to, I don't know if I can say it on all the platforms, but PDF stuff, you know what I'm saying? Older men, young kids, you get it. And so it's actually saying, like, don't do that. It doesn't give a crap about 2 grown men getting it on consensually. Like, it doesn't care about that at all. That's just one interpretation, but there's 100 others. And again, all I'm really interested in right now, Mason, is if we do have these interpretations for these other passages in this book that clearly seem to cause harm or contradict other passages, why don't we have an interpretation for this passage that makes it better? It just seems to me like we're hanging on to one of those things like the shrimp stuff, man. Like, go ahead and wear cotton and you know, polyblend fabrics, man. Who cares? You know, grow 2 crops in the same field. Fuck it, man. You know, like why is this something we cannot find?
Put another way, where in the Bible do you get this supposed hierarchy that says this rule shall be listened to, but this rule shall not?
Right.
I know that people have tried to create this. Well, these are ceremonial rules and these are laws and these are that. That doesn't come from the Bible. That is a framework that was placed on the text after it was authored. And you, as a student of it, should recognize that the frameworks you put onto the text when you want to negotiate with the text, which is what we're doing here. I want to negotiate with Leviticus 25. That framework was not in the minds of the original authors, and you need to sort of deal with that as well. But we've been talking long enough. How is Leviticus 25:46 sitting with you right now?
Right. Well, I do think it's important to understand that I do think that God cares about how like going back to the Old Testament before you have the New Testament, God does care about how slaves are treated. And I think that's evident from his character. But would
you want to be my slave under the laws of the Bible, Mason?
Yeah, well, going back to Exodus 21.
No, answer the question. Answer the question. Would you want to be a slave, a foreigner slave of mine or anybody else's? Let's make it a real bad person, right? A real bad person. Would you want to be their slave under the rules in the Bible?
Well, can I finish what I was saying, though?
No. I just want, it's a yes or no question. Just say yes or no and then move on. But it's an important question because you made this assertion, God cares. And if God cares about something, he's God. He doesn't have to be some sort of political gradualist and say, you know, if I made a rule that banned slavery, the people would revolt because he banned everything else. He banned worshiping calves. He banned tattoos. He banned women who are on their periods from going into the church. He can't ban slavery. So he's not a gradualist. He chose to write these rules under your view, to write these rules and say, you can own other people as property. You own them for life. You can give them to your children. You can beat them. You can have sex with them. As long as you don't kill them, it's okay. Would you want to be anybody's slave under those rules? That's the question.
From my own understanding of it, which is scant, I'll be honest, I don't know a lot of the context of any of it, but I think I would rather be a slave of the Jewish people than of the people around them.
Okay, we can go into that a little.
So you're admitting that
I was going to be a slave at this time.
So you're admitting to the tribalism in the Bible then. So what you're saying is the rules that favor Israelites are nicer than the rules that God set up for foreigners, but that is dodging the question. And I think you know why you're dodging that question.
And real quick, Mason, because the answer is obvious, right? What Cross-Examiner is saying here is, man, seriously, right? Just even barely looking at these rules in Leviticus, are you really preferring that setup to whatever the hell is going on right now? Like, no, of course not, right? Now, we can get into are the Israelites treating Israelite slaves better than others? Again, Dr. Joshua Bowen and a lot of other really, really prominent scholars seem to say otherwise. But I mean, the answer is obviously no, you don't want to be a slave under biblical rules, right? Just give us that one, Mason. Come on.
No, I'd rather be a slave in Israel than anywhere else.
Sure,
but compared
to not being a slave, you don't want to be a slave, right?
Given the choice between being a slave, being a slave to Israelites, and being a slave as a foreigner, which door on Let's Make a Deal would you choose?
Let me make my argument, please.
We'll give you a second. We'll give you a second, Mason. We've been going. Okay. Also, hopefully, you take all the ribbing in good nature, man. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I get it. But I just want to go back to Exodus because Exodus is the passage I have more experience with because it talks about, if you're a slave, if you beat them and they survive a day or two, then it says they're not to be avenged. And that means that you will not be killed. If your slave dies, though, that means that you die. which I think
What
is
if he
actually
dies?
to
What if he
pay
dies
something.
4 days later?
4 days later.
Yeah, 4 days later. He
Then,
gets
yeah,
up and
you
walks
die.
around after 2 or 3 days, but then 4 days later
Yeah,
or a
internal
year
bleeding.
later, because of his injuries, he dies. Is there any penalty there? That would be what we call in the United States
Okay.
murder. It
So-
doesn't matter how long it takes for the injury to cause the death. We've had cases of
Right.
people who have caused an injury, and that person's like, let's say, in a coma for 10, 20 years, and then they die. And because the doctor says they died because of the injury, it is now murder. That's the rules we have of morality as a society around the world. We tend to agree on murder, rape, and slavery are all bad. That's the three that societies
Right.
tend to agree with. So
Although they only
if,
survive
if you murder your
for that
slave,
long
but it
because
takes
of
him a month
modern
to
medicine,
die,
right?
no punishment. Is that correct?
How often is that happening? Because
Doesn't matter. Answer the question.
But it's a
Answer the
written
question.
case. And
He said a
very
line, 3
written
days, right? A
interpretation.
couple of days?
It says
There's a
it says
line.
A couple. Really, it's 2
Yeah.
or 3.
So 3
He has
days
to
later,
die
he
after a
dies.
couple of
4 days later, he dies. Because of the wounds.
4 could be included as well. It's. I don't know if it's meant to be as
5,
strict.
where's the line? Does the Bible not clear on this?
It
Seems
it-
like an important
might
line.
it
not be,
clearly
because
doesn't
if you
it
take
clearly
2 or 3,
doesn't
2 or
seem
3
to
is
give
kind of
the
big.
indication that like a month after the injuries are sustained, right? Like that slave would be,
Yeah.
like the slave master would not be foul of the law.
Or let's
If,
say
like,
he doesn't die. He loses his leg.
yeah,
Or loses an eye.
right. It seems very
Right.
clear.
There's actually a law about that.
Yes, there
if you
is.
go down,
Sure, there
like,
is.
a paragraph. It says if they lose their eye, then they shall go free, and if they knock out the tooth, they shall go free. So
Right.
Yeah.
actually,
If they are what?
Is-
If they are what? Are they
remarkably just-
foreign slaves or Hebrew slaves? Look at
They're Hebrew.
Exodus
a
21,
slave.
2.
I think it's either one. When
Look
you
at
say
Exodus
Hebrew,
21, 2.
it's
What is
just
Exodus
Hebrew.
21 talking about?
It's just the Hebrew slaves, Mason.
So then does it switch to, this is okay to do, to any slave?
Anything in Leviticus, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And
So,
the other thing about
why don't-
these legal codes in this time period, and again, this is not coming from me. Please go to, people that are actual Assyriologists and
yeah.
archaeologists and stuff, again, Dr. Joshua Bowen, Dr. Megan Lewis, they're amazing. I'm huge fans of the work that they do. These legal codes are not going to write out all of the things that the king or the emperor wants you to do. And the law codes that we see in the Old Testament are, sometimes word for word copies of these other legal codes that were given out in Babylon, Assyria, ancient Israel, all these different empires and stuff, man. And one of the things that was really, really clear to everybody at the time that got these codes, that if the emperor did not say explicitly, don't do this thing, it's on the table, man, because they went through so much effort of carving literally into stone a lot of times, right? Carving into stone all the things that you explicitly can't do, meaning if they left it off, it's off for a reason. they're telling you that is permissible. That stuff is okay.
Right.
I'm not legislating.
I would say it's different in the case of the Bible, because the Bible is not a complete list of laws. Like say the Bible, I think Leviticus has a lot about how to run the temple. But the thing about
I want to
is
let you
that
talk. I just want to
not-
ask you what you mean by complete.
Yeah.
Because the Bible
Like,
contains within
yeah.
it a whole set of laws. So all of the biblical
right.
laws are in the Bible. Do you agree with that? Like there's no biblical laws that are outside the Bible by definition, right?
By definition, right?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, you said the Bible is not a complete set of laws, and that to me means of biblical laws. And so that means that there's some sort of God-based laws that are not listed in the Bible? Is that what you mean? Or do you mean the Bible is
let me
not
clarify.
just
In the
a
Old
list of
Testament.
laws?
Right. Let me clarify. If nothing
Okay.
else, in the Old Testament, the Old Testament is not a complete, because in fact,
The New
you see
Testament.
this in like the book of Leviticus, which is like talks about how to run the temple, is that it's not a complete list. Like it doesn't actually give you everything you need to run the temple. There's a lot of other.
Oh, so there is man-made law
Regulations,
outside the
rules.
Bible, right?
Mhm.
Is that what you mean? Okay, yeah. So
Is that-
God
No, that's
God
not
gave
what
the
I mean.
laws in
That's
the
not what I mean.
Bible, and then man made all sorts of other laws but had to obey the
No.
biblical laws, right?
No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that the Bible is meant to be, it's meant to show us what God is like, and it starts, and we're supposed to seek to understand the rest. And I think this is a big part.
How do we know that we've understood it?
Yeah.
Mason,
No, well, let's back up first, because I
Yeah.
disagree with the premise.
Right. Yeah.
The sections of the Bible we're talking about were laws. And I don't know if you don't know that about the history of the Old Testament. They were laws. You sound like you're sort of saying these are stories, or this is an example of what God kind of wants. No, these were laws. If this bad thing happened and the Bible said stone them, they were stoned because these were laws. The Old Testament has like 600 laws in it, and we've been talking about them. How to treat your slaves, whether or not you can wear mixed fabrics, can you eat shellfish? These are all laws. Do you recognize that?
No, they are laws. It's not what I mean.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that was clear. All right, please.
When it comes down to what is moral, what is right, like what is truly good, like it's not all there in the Old Testament. And then this is what Jesus comes to explain. Is
fair enough.
Like,
hang on just a second, Mason, because I think I understand. I think I'm following. I just want to make sure that I am. You're saying, like, look, man, the Bible has a bunch of stuff in it, but it's not everything. Jesus and the New Testament comes in and kind of fills in some of the other stuff, and maybe even some church tradition and history in there that kind of helps us understand and navigate what the Bible is saying. Is that pretty much where you're coming from?
Yeah, that's actually
okay. So then my question for that then is, like, it really feels like we have a difficulty with knowing whether or not that whole, like, outside of the Bible and New Testament thing, how do we know that we're getting it right? How do we know that the church tradition coming from the Byzantine or the Roman version, how do we know that that stuff is correct?
Right. That is a good question. And truthfully, I don't have an answer for you there, because I'm just
trying to
figure that out myself.
Mason, I love that. Mason, I love that. I'm so sorry to jump in excitedly, but we have been talking for 40 minutes. I think it's been a really, really great call, and I want to stop it right there, just because if you can answer that question, Mason, I fucking swear to the God that I don't believe in, I swear to you, brother, you will make so many people in this space and many others deeply satisfied in a way we have never been. Okay, if you can go back, I hate to give you homework, but if you could go and like think about that question and be like, hey, how do we actually know this church tradition is what God wants us to enact in the world and so forth? And then give us a call back, whoever the hosts are. I am sure they would love to hear that methodology and try to walk through it with you, like, again, like we didn't come on here and say, oh, you can't quote Leviticus, fuck you, you're an idiot. No, hell no, man. Like, I get it. This stuff takes time. It's difficult, man. Cross-examiner's been doing this whole, like, I'm a lawyer thing for a long time. So, like, it takes a lot, man. And I think standing on a place of, hey, honestly, that's a good question, and I don't have a fantastic answer. Like, hell yeah, let's pause it right there. We've got a couple of other really good calls, and just give us a call back in the future, Mason.
And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Mason, before we let go. I know we talked a lot, and I know you have more that you may want to say, but if you could sort of summarize your experience with this call and what questions you still have, maybe call back again. What are your thoughts there?
Oh, just how the call's been.
Yeah, how's the call been? Where are you now? Like, did we bite your head off? Like, I know we were talking a lot, but we tried not to bite your head off. We're trying to just ask questions. There's a lot of these sorts of questions.
Tell us if we're assholes.
We went down one path with the whole slavery thing. There's lots of other paths we could have gone.
We're masochists, man. We read the comments.
Tell us you hate us. No. How are things? Will you call back to continue the conversation?
It's been a pleasure talking with you guys. I'm bummed I didn't get to get into the letter to Onesimus, but another time.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
that.
please
Let's
do
do
call
it.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
call us back, man, and tell David thank you again for sending you our way, and yeah, go look into that stuff. And this is one thing that people don't do a lot of times, man. And I understand why you don't want to hear yourself talk a lot of times, but go back. This will be up on all the different platforms, right? Go back and rewatch this section and like just take some notes. It's totally, that's a great way to get your thoughts in order and be like, oh no, wait a second. SR said this really stupid thing at, minute mark 5, whatever. And I'm going to come back and hammer and I'm
Yeah, if we have any of the stuff we said is wrong, please correct
Please.
us. You can email us,
Tell
you
us.
can call back in, let us know what we got wrong.
Yes. But
I
I'm
find
gonna,
that that's a good exercise on both sides.
it is. And I'm gonna drop you unceremoniously, Mason. I'm so sorry, but thank you so much for
Thank you,
calling us,
Mason.
man. This was a really, really great call. And I do hope you have a great rest of your day, man. I do. We do. We move them quick. When we're ready, I'm just like, chop it. But no, I like that, man. Do you feel energized by that? Was that a good call?
I do. Like I genuinely think that he is the best type of person to go on that journey, that he is, he thought about his answers and he gave answers. He didn't give us the runaround too often.
Right.
When you hit those uncomfortable ones, you tend to sort of like, but what about the Israelites? But that's natural. And everybody goes through that.
Right.
I would say to Mason, you did a great job. I would continue to ask the questions. Don't trust us. Don't trust your pastor. Don't trust your friends and family. Do the work. You got to do the work. Try to defend all of these things and tell me and explain to somebody how Yahweh either changed his mind and said slavery was great for many thousands of years, and then you imagine all those people who lived as slaves for all of that time lived under what Yahweh said was a good thing, obviously bad. See how you can defend that, or any other topic. And that is a great exercise to go through for anybody on any side of the issue. Try to steel man the opposite side, or try to defend your side against an attack. And that is a good, you got to do that. You got to do that. Otherwise, you're just hiding.
Yeah, it's a very, very valuable skill that, especially once you've been in a space for a little while, you just kind of stop double checking that these things are correct. You just kind of go along with it. And just because many of us here, right, stepped away from religion or got out of, all kinds of different mindsets, doesn't mean that we're not still in them. In fact, just because I just want to say this real quick, because I hear people get this wrong all the time. And I just think it's worth saying. Cognitive dissonance is not the discomfort from holding two different beliefs, you guys. Cognitive dissonance is something that we all do on a regular basis, which is we hold two contradictory, beliefs in our head. The thing is, it often presents as uncomfortable once it's pointed out to us, and people will do basically fucking anything to get away from that level of discomfort, because it is literally stabbing you in your mind. It is your mind tearing itself apart, like, oh my God, what do we do? How do we fix it? So it's not like, just because, anyway, it's not that important. I just hear people say
God is and always has been good. God endorses and prescribes very, very cruel behavior in the Bible. How do I reconcile those?
Correct.
Well, if I really, really believe the first, and then I'm forced to really examine the second, I'm going to sort of question all of this stuff over here about the slavery in the Bible. I'm not going to question the God is good part, or that God exists part.
Right.
And the fact that you're doing that is a clue that you're not engaging in original investigation. You're coming to it with your own framework, and that is natural. So
that's what we do.
You don't come to the experiment and say, I presume that this new drug has no negative side effects, because it would make me uncomfortable because I really like Pfizer or whatever. You come to it to say, I need to find out whether or not it does. And then you run a bunch of experiments, and then you come to a conclusion. So do that with your own beliefs and claims and see what you come up with.
It's tough. It's a difficult thing, man. But that is why we like to hang out and try and help. And by the way, if you enjoy that, you can like this video, you can subscribe to the channel, enable notifications, comment below on your favorite caller. You can even send super chats or donations. This is a 501c3, by the way, folks. So give those tax-deductible donations now, because it's the start of the year. And why not? I mean, what else have you bought? It's only February. Like, come on, you probably still have room in your budget. I mean, seriously, like just pull up the spreadsheet real quick. It's just, it should be. Anyway, if whatever, it's like, for like a cup of coffee a day. What are we talking about here? We do actually have some super chats. This is another incentive for people to send these in over there on the YouTube's land, because I will read the things that you say, however uncomfortable they make me feel. We do have $1.99 from Mel Tree 5666. I love you, Mel. I'm glad you're still out there doing well and hailing Satan every so often. We've got Gayest Husky 2177 sent us $4.99 saying Christianity is inherently abusive. It not only doesn't believe in consent, but has full contempt for it. Christians think everything is theirs to infect and control. Well, I will say that is very reminiscent of Christopher Hitchens' book, Religion Poisons Everything. Right?
God is not great. Yeah.
How religion poisons everything. Yeah, there it is. There it is. But
it's what we were talking about in the cold open. It comes, this Christian nationalism comes from this concept of dominionism. Dominionism is cherry picking a verse out of Genesis that says, man, it's
man has
the
dominion.
exact quote here. Yeah, it's Genesis 1:28.
Right.
You shall have dominion over all living things and nature. For thousands of years, that was interpreted as you're the farmers, you're the caretakers, and recently, dominionists have said, oh, that also means we Christians should take over government and take over laws and the police state and all of this stuff. Again, like we were just talking with Mason, you're bringing now a new framework to the text. You're renegotiating this text and coming out with a different conclusion. And they're using that to say, oh, that's why it should be a Christian nation. So it's the same exact thing.
Which ties absolutely perfectly into our next caller, because we are going to go out to Texas. We have Emmanuel is a theist, he, him pronouns, wants to discuss why the U.S. should be a theocratic state. Well, Emmanuel, I can tell you, definitely myself and Cross Examiner would love to hear your reasonings for that. Thanks so much for calling. So tell us, why should the United States be a theocratic government?
Yeah, well, before I called in, I was a little bit nervous. Nice talking to you, SR. The last time we spoke was June 2023, so it's been such a long time.
I feel like it's been a while. I'm glad I hope you're doing well, by the way. I hope you're taking care of yourself and all that good stuff. Even though we may disagree, I still care about you as a person, so hope you're okay, man. But,
yeah, so I don't really mind a non-Christian like holding office or government, positions or whatever. The thing that I like is as long as you have some kind of beliefs, I'm okay with it. Now, if you don't have no beliefs and you're like agnostic or something like that, or you're like a skeptic, I would like have a problem with it. So when I say,
so hang on just for a second, Emmanuel, just for a brief second here. So like, I am an atheist, right? Like you could even classify me as like an agnostic, non-cognitive, whatever. Okay. Like there's all these different labels, but none of those specifically give me my value set, right? Like I have a value set. For instance, humanism is a pretty good one, So like somebody could not believe in a God of any kind and then still have a value set. In fact, like, at least my understanding of like various philosophical constructions out there, like the majority of them don't appeal to a God, So like then it seems like there's no problem, right? Because like I have values, so even though I'm an atheist,
when I say beliefs is like a religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs, I'm not talking about like more.
But what SR is asking is what is special about religious beliefs? Because there's religious beliefs out there that are horrible.
Right.
Like, there's really nice religious beliefs. Like the Jains are like all about peace to the point of like not wanting to kill a bug, right? I'm not sure I'd want them in office because I want to get rid of the mosquitoes and I want to be able to fumigate. So they might pass laws that tell me I can't do that. There are other people whose religion is might makes right. And they've got a God they worship that says, if you can go out and kill people, you should do it. You don't want them in office. So I'm not sure I agree with your premise that you say, you are okay with anybody that claims to have a religious belief holding office and being able to pass laws that control how you live. Is that really what you mean?
What I mean is that I'm not like talking about like that kind of like death or cultic type of stuff. What I'm talking about is like they don't really have to be like Christian or Jewish or Hindu or Islam. I don't really mind it. Now, personally, I have an ideal of like America being more of like a Iran or Yemen or that kind of stuff. That's kind of like my
So you think that America should be more like a state that just killed 2,000 protesters because they were protesting?
Right.
Why
do you think
not that part? Not that part. Okay.
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 So like those places without that stuff, but again, why? Why?
Why I tend to be selective is like I don't really believe in killing because of your belief. Like personally, I still believe that you deserve like some type of human rights. Like I'm not like an asshole. Like you're like, you don't believe in God, you need to be killed. No, I don't really believe in that.
Well,
but what I actually believe in that is they have laws like if you're a non-believer, you get more taxes or that type of stuff. So I think it will be kind of like nice if we have incentives like that. So that
wait, hold on. Hang on. I'm sorry, Emmanuel.
No, this is great. So no. Let him. I want to hear this.
I do.
I've got a new bill I want passed.
I just have to make sure that I am on the right page. Are you saying that you want a system of government where those that are not part of the religion of the government are like taxed at a higher or different rate than those that are the same religion?
Tax. What is your problem?
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because
so like you know that's jizya, right? In the Quran, right? Like you know that system has been tried. Allah specifically says those from the book pay a different price than the the non-believers and
we
all
already
those
said we want to be like Iran. Like
this is crazy.
Tracks.
Okay, I guess.
Tell us more, Emmanuel.
I'm sorry. Please tell us.
Okay, first of all, I believe in Christ, right? So what I'm saying is like if you don't like believe in Christ, we're not going to harm you or nothing like that. But
you don't think that taxing people is harmful? Wait. You don't think that taxing people more is harmful?
Let me introduce
not like
you to some
a significant amount. It's like a little bit amount. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. It's just a little bit today.
But why in the world? Why in the world, man, would you ever hear a proposal for a policy or a law in a society that explicitly singles out a group of people and treats them worse? And then you go like, yeah, no, that feels really good to me. Like, I don't see what's wrong
it's not
with that.
worse.
Like,
it's just a little worse. You heard
it's
him.
a little worse. Right.
If I've learned one thing in the practice of law is that you should use as many adjectives as possible when you're describing how to behave.
Emmanuel, look, no way this works out in any conceivable, right? There's no way that this works out because the likelihood that the people that are going to be in this government that you tout as being your ideal government, the likelihood that those people are going to adhere to your version of this belief system, right? So incredibly low. But the more important problem is the fact that it opens this argument and legal justification up. What happens when everybody wakes up tomorrow and reconverts to the true religion of Islam? All of a sudden, Emmanuel, you become a second, third, fourth class citizen. And if the law is not treating people equally when it comes to these types of things, then how in the world do you ever expect to ride a bus or get a hotel or eat at a fucking diner? I mean, this is the entire premise. I don't know if you planned this, Emmanuel, but like it is the start of Black History Month, man. And like, oh my God, I feel so many weird echoes and I don't know what to do. I'm sorry. I got a little excited.
Emmanuel, a question.
But
Emmanuel,
by the way, I'm really sorry.
Emmanuel, hold on. what is the purpose of the tax? Usually you tax behavior because you want it to change, right? I'm going to start taxing cigarettes because I want to lower the smoking rates. I want to tax soda because I want people to drink less sugar water, right? So I assume your motive is, I'm going to tax people so they will change their religious views?
Right.
Is that what your conclusion is?
Yeah, but I would only target atheism. It's not like if you are in a Christian state like Texas, it's like if you're Islam or Hindu, you get taxed more.
Do I have to? Let's carry this one out, SR. This is the best way to analyze these.
Let's do it.
So let's say Emmanuel, you are now the head. You're the director of the Bureau of Religious Taxation, and you have to promulgate some regulations about how you're going to carry out the mandate from Congress. Congress has passed a law that says we shall tax non-believers this amount. When they file their income tax, they get a 5% bump, whatever you want it to be, right? Now, what regulations are you going to have to promulgate to determine whether or not somebody gets taxed? Could you please tell me how you would tell who gets taxed and who doesn't get taxed?
Yeah. For example, there's a lot of, I live in Austin, Texas, so I see a lot of secular, agnostics. So you would target those.
No. Emmanuel, you misunderstand my question. All right. I asked, what rule would you put into place? What regulation, right? You're at the DMV. There's a bunch of regulations about you have to fill out a form to get a driver's license. Well, when I pay my taxes, I have to fill out a form. You're now in charge of that form and the rules.
Yeah.
What rules would you put in place? What actual form would I have to fill out? Would it be an interview? Would the police be able to come to my house and force me to show that I have a cross on my wall? What method would you use to determine whether or not I get taxed? Go.
I would just say, take their word for it. Like it might be that.
So it's a checkbox on a form.
Say shibboleth.
It's just a checkbox on a form. I don't want to receive the non-believers tax.
Yeah.
So everybody will check that box and nothing happens. I don't think that's a good regulation there.
No.
Manuel.
The way you could do that is, for example, you're on a radio show, right? So you could collect the data, who's promoting.
Right. You really, Emmanuel. I know we could come up, the three of us here could absolutely, in beautiful legalese, come up with this system. I genuinely hope and do believe, I'll say this, Emmanuel, that this is particularly silly for 1,000 different reasons, man.
And going to your point, SR, about Black History Month, it's actually quite scary because there used to be laws that would say, if you are Black, then you can't stay in this hotel, right?
Exactly. That's the reason.
So then the law became, how do I determine whether or not I am Black? And there was no way. There wasn't like DNA tests. There was just, they look it. And then that makes its way up in the bowels of Hitler's Germany. And all of a sudden, the definition of not Aryan starts expanding and expanding.
And ultimately, it's not about it. Ultimately, especially like those types of laws that you're referencing, which there are many still that affect in a lot of different ways. Jaywalking. Look at the history of that. It's fascinating. But like, the point of those laws is not really to get down to the nitty gritty of, oh man, you know what? It's like technically if you're like 1/16 on your mother's great aunt's side and her dog walker had a friend whose hairstylist used to, they don't give a shit about that. Just the same with like abortion, right? Like they don't give a fuck whether or not like the Plan B pill actually is an abortion medically or is an abortion, if they're viability, they don't care about any of that. The whole point is these types of laws and these types of policies and programs, especially enacted on a governmental level, are designed to make second-class citizens out of a population so that when we continue to erode the rights that they have, nobody gives a fuck anymore. That's the whole point, Emmanuel. And if we start singling people out and saying, man, you know what? This person on Facebook once said this thing about how they don't like a church anymore. Let's go tax them a bunch. The next thing that happens is we start enacting those exact same terrible laws that the whole point of the civil rights movement was pushing against, man. We're regressing right in front of our eyes, man. And I genuinely don't believe you would want somebody walking around Austin, Texas with a fucking clipboard going, hey man, come here. Do you believe in God? Cool. Check this box for me. Thanks so much. We're going to tax you more now. That's just shitty. And I wouldn't want that either. That's against our values, supposedly, as an American nation.
Can I just say this, by the way? I would still, it should stand that gender, national origin, orientation, I still believe that should be protected.
Religion is the next one.
Emmanuel.
Religion is the next one in that protected class.
You didn't address a single thing that I said or SR said. I think you just want to get on here and say what you want to say. You are not interested in a conversation. I really enjoyed the call because it was insanely silly, and I like playing out like, is it a form? Is it an interview?
Right.
Like, that's fun and funny, but it has this sinister undertone that you are not addressing nor recognizing, I think. Yeah. So either you're a really, really good troll, or you are ignorant of history, you're ignorant of human nature. And I think you should go study those before you start proposing that it would be okay for every law discriminates, right? A speeding law discriminates and treats people who want to go faster than 55 differently from those who go slower than 55. But we do that because we have secular, science-based, evidence-based reasons to do those things, and we allow them. And over time, we have learned there's no reason to pass a law that draws a line based on sex, gender, national origin, and religion, because there's no justification for it. You would destroy the First Amendment on both halves. You were taxing people because of what they said on a radio show. That's the free speech part. And then you'd be establishing religion. That's the other part of the First Amendment. So you are anti-First Amendment. And quite frankly, I think either a troll or ignorant. So, and I don't mean that as an attack, like ignorant as in I'm ignorant of how to build rocket ships. I just don't know. I don't think you understand the history of how societies and majorities gang up on the other. The history of mankind is one of kinship and tribalism. And the first thing people do when they get into a group and start writing laws is they start treating groups differently. And we need to constantly fight against that to drag man out of the primordial ooze into a civilized way of behaving. And your law would put us right back in the days of Henry VIII.
I agree. And I just want to say real quick, I muted him for just a second because I was going to ask you if you wanted to go, but just real quick, like it got me so hard that he listed everything in that protected class list except for the religion. It was like, imagine if somebody came up to you and was just like, man, I love all the colors in the rainbow, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo.
Yeah.
All of them. And you're like, what? Violet? You're like, fuck, man. It's the next Violet. One. It's the next one.
I'm going to tax the shit out of Violet.
Tax the shit out of Violet. All you Violets out there. No. What do you think, man? Should we go back?
Emmanuel, I'm done. I'm done. It's silly.
Cool
I don't think he's either not serious or he really, 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 really needs to become a student of history and understand that that majorities are problematic, and we need a structure to protect us against the tyranny of a majority.
Right. That's the whole point. That's supposed to be the whole point about this country. Now, we have not lived up to those values, right? I'm not saying that we've ever been perfect. In fact, we've actively gone the opposite direction. And one of the clearest, most obvious signs of that are these types of laws and policies that Emmanuel was talking about,
During the civil rights movement, somebody pointed out on the floor, during the debate for the Civil Rights Act, one of the biggest acts that America's ever passed, it was the single longest debate that Congress has ever had, like measured in hours. To this day, people were fighting about it all over, and somebody stood up and said, my black friends cannot stay in hotels that allow dogs to stay in them.
Right.
That's the country you end up with.
Right.
And that's the smallest little point, but it's an important point.
No, it's
and
a very
that's what you end up with under your regime.
Yeah. And Emmanuel, I know I've had you muted, just sitting there. I appreciate you calling. Again, I am, even though I very, very, very much disagree, I am glad to know you're doing well. You know, I want that for you. And I don't think you should be taxed at a higher rate specifically because of your religious beliefs. So,
well, I'm not sure he thinks that. I think if I understood his proposal, we want to tax people to encourage them to become religious, but all they have to do is check a box to say that they are religious, but they won't actually be taxed. I think that was his position.
Right. I don't know, man. It's just, it is, it is so clear, I think. Right. Yeah. I do this test a lot, and I've done it on this show a bunch too, where it's called the change the word game, and you keep everything else in the sentence exactly the same except for that one word, right? And you just swap it out with something different. You know, it's like, I think we should tax atheists at a higher rate so that they will convert. It's like, okay, let's swap that to, I think we should tax Christians. I think we should tax Jewish people. I think we should tax black people. It's just like, you just swap in a different group, and then all of a sudden it should make your stomach turn. And then you should realize, oh, wait a second, the original statement is the problem. It's not the noun that gets put into this sentence. The sentence as a whole is problematic.
Yeah, I'll just quote Jefferson when the colony of Virginia, before the United States even existed, was trying to tax people so they could hire teachers of the Christian faith to teach in Christian schools. He said, quote, compelling a man to pay taxes to propagate ideas he disbelieves is, quote, sinful and tyrannical. And I tend to fall in Jefferson's camp on that point. I don't want you taxed as a Christian, and I don't want a Muslim taxed because they're a Muslim.
Correct.
And I don't want to be taxed because I haven't been convinced of either of those positions yet.
Correct. Because that is the exact framework that leads us to all of these horrible, horrible things that hopefully this month more people will get a little bit familiar with, because again, they affect us still to this day. And a quote that I love, that I absolutely love from Malcolm X, is that the most segregated time in America is high noon on a Sunday. And that has some interesting echoes and through lines right back to what Emmanuel was saying, because I'm not positive, but do you think it's going to be the black church? Do you think it's going to be the black church that's the model for the government? I'm not so sure.
Another one of my favorite quotes is Chris Rock, who said, anybody who's black and Christian has a real short memory.
Yes, for sure. Very, very true. Oh, we have a couple of wonderful super chats I'm going to read real quick because they sent them in. And we've got one from Crispin Slit. Okay, that's interesting. They've been a member for 2 months, and they're sending in £2, which is great. We accept all kinds of payment, American or fake. Just kidding. I'm so sorry, Crispin. That was uncalled for. You guys are great. Anyway, it says a cup of coffee and a cute little smiley face. Well, thank you so much, Crispin. I will not be getting that cup of coffee, but somebody will. And thank you. And then we've got $4.99 from Magneto Was Right, saying SR looking like Fabio Jesus, about to give me a second coming.
Second one. We're on to round 2 already.
I know. I don't know whether to be impressed or
better drink your Gatorade, man.
I know, right? Like get some protein.
Stay hydrated.
Yeah. I don't know about that one. I probably should have read that one.
No,
it's great. I think it's fine.
I saw it, and I'm like, I'm not even going to say. Maybe
I don't think it breaks like TOS or anything.
Yeah.
I don't think it breaks like TOS or anything. I think you're fine. You know what? Honestly, Magneto was right. You do you. Have a good time. I don't want to stop you from, if this is your thing, if you want to, spend a Sunday watching atheists and philosophy and do a little, special time, then do that. I am going to get yelled at so freaking hard. So before I get yelled at, let me talk to you for a moment about the wonderful incredible group of people who donate their time and efforts and monies and skills and talents and thoughts. The wonderful, wonderful crew here at the ACA that makes all of this possible. Can we see those beautiful, beautiful faces? Not upset with me at all, not in the slightest disappointed or angry. Very, very wonderful, gorgeous, actually. Just
Looks like
incredibly.
several of them are on their second coming for us
Please
there
don't
too.
say
Look
that.
at that.
Please don't
What's
say
going on back there?
Please don't say that. Oh my God, we're gonna get in so much trouble. Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a good Christian man. I just
Right.
mean, your second appearance on the
Right. That's what. So anyway, we've got some callers. No, seriously though, the crew's amazing. They're phenomenal. Please don't yell at me too much afterwards, guys. Thank you.
And I'll even add that we're on a new platform today that was like they pulled this tech together out of the ether, and there was some little troubles right before the show, so we started like a minute late.
Yeah.
These guys were rock stars. When the shit started to go down, they got into troubleshooting mode and made it work.
And because of their amazing, amazing abilities, we're able to come hang out with all of you guys on TikTok. And so you guys can like and hang out with us. I'm not really sure what you're supposed to do on TikTok. I just got to be honest. I'm really sorry about that.
Share it,
and I know.
Comment, like.
Yeah, the normal stuff, right?
Follow.
Like you do like hearts and stuff. Like just tap the screen uncontrollably, hearting the fuck out of this.
Tick the talk.
Yeah, do it. Tick the talk. That just sounds gross.
As the kids say.
That's what the kids are saying. Oh, God. Okay. Oh, man. All right. Well, before this completely goes off the rails, let's grab a caller. We are going to go to Mike. He, him pronouns, is a theist in South Carolina and wants to talk about some Christian nationalism stuff. So that is up our alley here, buddy. So, hey, Mike, what is going on?
Hey, hello, gentlemen. I was calling about the Christian nationalism. I had a comment. It sounds like you are both against getting taxed for being non-Christians, atheists. Is that true?
Yeah, I would be against, as is our federal government right now, currently as the laws stand. I would be against passing laws or policies that specifically target people from those list of protected classes, like we were talking about. I think that's a bad thing that we.
Would they, let me ask you a question, caller. Would they be, it's Mike, sorry. Would such a law be illegal at this time?
Yeah, I don't know why you didn't bring it up. It's First Amendment. Can't do that. So
I did bring it up.
Government
we did.
With religion,
we did.
So.
We did mention in the last call that it is technically against the law, but it doesn't matter, man.
Yeah.
What are you talking
what
about
are you doing
today? Yeah, sounds like
It's
Christian nationalism.
Yeah. Well, but in the Muslim, you probably know this too. The jizya is their tax for non-believers.
Yes.
Yes,
it is.
I
also mentioned that too. But again, no worries, all good. Thank you so much.
To live.
Yeah. So what would you like to talk about regarding Christian nationalism? Do you think this is a good thing? Do you think our government should be doing this?
I don't know how you define it, because the way I define Christian nationalism is I'm a Christian and I believe in our nation. So yeah, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian nationalist patriot.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Hold on.
Jump in for a second.
Yeah. Let
Mike,
cross-examiner.
have you and I
explain.
spoken on this twice before?
Probably, yes.
You've asked the same question multiple times, and I'm a little concerned that your question is not genuine anymore, because we went to great pains a few weeks ago to explain this in great detail, and I did it previously a few months ago, and you're still asking this question of, I don't know how to define it. Did you listen to me and not understand me, even though we had an extensive conversation? Did you fail to go look it up on any dictionary or Wikipedia? I'm very concerned that you are pretending to be confused, and forgive me if you're not, but when I hear somebody calling in time and time again and saying things like, from what I remember you said, we have this whole discussion about what Christian nationalism is, and at the end of the last call you said, oh yeah, I guess we're in agreement then. I don't want that either, right? Where I explained that having one religious group of people being able to control the levers of the government in favor of that religion through laws and enforcement techniques, you didn't want that either. That's what we're talking about, among other things. And then we also, talk about things like, you would say, I don't think anybody's advocating for that. You've made that comment before, and I've listed many. In fact, I listed many at the top of the show. I didn't say names, but we have sitting members of Congress saying we should all be Christian nationalists and selling Christian nationalist T-shirts. We have Project 2020. We have all of this stuff. So this is a call we've had before, and I want you to explain to me why you're calling back in with the same question.
I will answer that. I am concerned as well. I think you're widening the net on Christian nationalism to include Christians. So if you're a Christian...
Have I ever said that?
You're not a Christian.
You asked me that last time, and I said I wasn't.
But I'd like to keep it that way because my concern is we've got hate speech laws in 48 of the 50 states. South Carolina is not one of the two they don't have it, but boy, they're pushing it hard here. What will happen is it'll be hate speech, and when Christians say something Christian, quoting the Bible and such, now all of a sudden we're in trouble. Now,
do you know what a hate speech law is?
Jail.
Yeah. Do you know how that works, Mike?
A little bit. Go ahead.
Okay.
No. You tell us. You're the ones protesting the hate speech. What is a hate speech law, and how does it get enforced? How are you convicted of a hate speech crime? A hate crime, I should say. It's not really a hate speech crime. That was a misnomer.
Okay, my understanding as far as hate speech goes is if you say something that's offensive to list the groups that are in there, Christians are not. They say religion, but they're not in there. So if you say something offensive, and it's basically the same list of people that started out with equal rights in the 60s, and it's been expanded to, what is it, a dozen or more? It's like
sure.
Age.
I think,
so hold on. Sorry, I want to get to the and then. So you say something, and then what? What happens?
And then, right.
And then when these are enacted, they're not fully enacted, but when they're enacted, then if you say anything on TikTok, anything online, you say anything on your job, if you're admitted or they have witnesses, now you're being fined. Then you're being
So let's stop right there.
Yeah.
Let's stop right there. Do you seriously think that those laws exist in the United States and are being enforced?
I think they're in the process of creating them as they are doing.
Okay, so I'm not asking that question. Do those laws exist and are they enforced anywhere in the United States? That's the question I'm asking you.
My statement was it's not yet.
Okay, so
we've got 40.
I'm going to tell you right now, as somebody who's not a fan of the current Supreme Court, there is no way that law would be enforceable. Every single court, every single lawyer, every single judge that I know of in the entire country, and those that I don't, would say that law is unconstitutional. It violates the First Amendment. It is one of the biggest differences between our country and countries like England, where they do have laws where if you offend somebody to some level of degree, you can get in trouble. And I don't agree with those laws. I am a First Amendment absolutist. So calling up and telling me you're worried that eventually somebody will create some law that plainly and clearly violates the First Amendment, my response is that will never happen. Do you have any other questions?
Wow, I 100% disagree with you. We've got 48 of 50 states with hate laws now.
You just said it wasn't happening.
Yeah, and
give me one example of somebody who was prosecuted for simply saying something that another religion found offensive in the United States. Give me an example right now. That would be headline news.
They haven't closed the loop in the United States. That's my whole point.
I don't know what loop you're talking about, so
Mike,
you're full of shit. I'm sorry. Mike,
even if we just take you at face value with everything you've said, all you've said is that there is a hypothetical harm that could happen in the future if this hypothetical thing gets passed by a group of people that I don't even know who the fuck would be trying to pass that, because nobody that's in a position in the government right now to make that possible in any capacity, as far as I'm aware of.
And it's the absolute worst case of whataboutism I've ever heard.
Right.
I bring up people in Congress who say we should be a Christian nation. We should practice Christian nationalism. There are governors in the state, people in Congress doing this, and you say, well, my reaction to that is I'm worried that in some point in the future, somebody might try to prosecute somebody for hate speech. How the fuck is that an answer?
Right.
I'm giving you real world examples of what people are doing today. And you're saying, what about this? And it's a non-thing.
Yeah.
Do you understand my frustration, Mike?
No, yeah. But it's because it's not complete yet. They've got to pass all.
I don't understand. Not complete
Mike,
yet doesn't make sense to me.
Mike, this is silly, and I think you know that it's silly because I think you agree, based on the description that Cross Examiner gave about your prior conversations with him specifically and being on this channel in general. I think you agree that the things that we're talking about when we talk about what Christian nationalism is, those things are in fact happening, and even you disagree with them. And I think while, hey, it's a good idea to make sure that, like, 250, 3,400 fucking years in the future, like, we don't ever go down that route. Like, yeah, that is important. And thanks so much for putting that on the chalkboard as well. But I really think there's some obvious things that are way more important, bro. And I think you do too. I don't actually believe that you are spending any reasonable amount of time of your life going around saying, my gosh, one of these days, somebody is just going to throw me in jail or find me find me a bunch of money just because I read from the Bible. I don't think that that's the thing you worry about. I don't think that's the case, man.
SR makes a great point. SR, have you ever seen, there's a genre of TikToks and YouTube shorts that were popular maybe 1 or 2 years ago, and I call it persecution shorts or persecution videos.
Yeah.
And it's like a young white teen, and the caption under it is rehearsing for the time that the police come arrest me for believing in Jesus, and they're handcuffing their hands, and they're playing this mournful music, and you get the same response from those followers when you ask them about, like, what are you talking about, that I'm getting from Mike is conspiracy theory, shadow boxing.
Yeah.
Mike, I am your ally. If there's any state out there that passes a law that says it is a crime to say something that offends somebody, period, that is unconstitutional, and it would be one of the most important things that we fight together in the history of anything. Right? There was a reason it's the First Amendment. It's the most important one. It would violate the First Amendment in multiple ways. It would violate the freedom of speech. It would violate the Establishment Clause. It would violate the freedom of press if they went after reporters like they're going after fucking Don Lemon on trumped-up charges now.
Right.
So I am a First Amendment absolutist. I think most Americans have been raised to believe that, to the point that we see a lot of people who go to other countries and start mouthing off so much that they end up in jail for saying things that offend people. I don't want to live in those countries. I want to live in this one. I've explained this to you multiple times. If you ever find a story along those lines, then call us. But until then, I don't want to talk about some conspiracy theory that you may have seen on some meme, some AI-generated news story, rather than reliable multiple sources that are checking on the reality of this fact. Because it's not happening. I would have heard about it. So, can we agree that is not a concern at this point in time?
You said you hadn't heard about anything happening in Europe the last couple of times we talked.
No, I did not. I did not. I told you what you claimed happened was leaving facts out. You said people were being arrested for praying away from some abortion clinic or something like that. And what I told you was that they were actually arrested for trespassing or whatever it is. We took the time to look it up. In fact, we had a third backup host who did the looking up for us. So don't try to sell me this piece of shit story that I'm telling you this isn't happening. What I'm telling you, and what I told you then, now that conversation is clear, is you and I are not getting the same information through the algorithm. You're getting made up fucking stories that trigger and poke and inspire your persecution complex. And they are either incomplete, they're true, but they're incomplete. A person was arrested and they were praying. Persecution. Parentheses, they had been asked to leave and were on private property. It was trespassing. This happens time and fucking time again. Fox News for fucking years was saying, the courts are enforcing Sharia law in the United States. True. Absolutely true. But it was because two private individuals made contracts, and the contract says, if we can't settle this dispute, we are going to refer to a Sharia law, and that is how we will resolve this. So the courts are practicing contract law, look at it and say, oh, you decided that the Sharia law will apply. Sharia law says you get the animal, not that guy. And Fox made bank out of people like you falling for their true but incomplete stories. So don't bring me the story that I'm changing my mind, that I think that this doesn't happen in other countries when I just told you that it did. And I've had this conversation for weeks with you. I think that you are either a sophisticated troll, or you have some paranoia going on that you need to look into. I'm sorry, SR, I'm done.
That's okay. You're fine. You're fine, man. Mike, I see a note here, okay, from the last time you've called. Because I'm pretty sure you and I have talked to in the past. It's just been a while.
We have.
I see a note here from the previous call, and I want you to hear this. It says, and this is what you called in to talk about this last time. It says, atheists purposely do not want to understand the Bible. Mike, I'm getting a little bit of that vibe with this, okay? And I don't want to, because I actually believe that, like, probably 90% of your days and your life that you have ever lived in this country, I imagine you're probably a decent person. And if you saw a child in front of you dying on the street in a way that you could easily help them, I believe you'd probably do that, man. I think in general, most of us in this country want a similar worldview. It sounds like, and I'm super glad that this work has already been done. It sounds like there is a clear group of people in this country that does not want the same view, do not have the same values that you, cross-examiner, myself, and our wonderful backup Scott Dickey have, right? And those are the people that we need to be working against. Those are the ideologies that we need to be stamping out, not talking about hypothetical fears of things that, man, are just already a violation of our law. Like, they're just flat out against it. You can't do it. Now, hey, man, laws could change. Yeah, sure, fine. But let's actually have a conversation about the real problems and the real harm that is going on today, okay? So look, I'm going to do this. We've tried this a few times on here. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, Mike, but I'm going to give it a fucking shot just because I want to. I am going to restart this over. We're just going to bring in, if you want to talk about Christian nationalism, cool. If you want to talk about God, cool. But let's do this. Let's have a good conversation like we had with our first caller, man. We can actually make some progress and understand each other. I want to understand where you're coming from. I am going to believe that you want the same thing. So we got Mike in South Carolina. He's a theist. He, him, wants to talk about God or Christian nationalism or other things in that vein. So, hey, Mike, what do you want to talk about?
Hey, Mike.
Hey, guys. I just got yelled at by the look. Here's a question for y'all, and it's very much related. I am concerned that the hate laws, any hate law, is bad law, because now you're being penalized for what you're thinking above and beyond intent. Like, there's manslaughter.
I think Cross-Examiner and I are kind of on a similar page there in terms of, well, like, yeah, if you just say something to offend people or thought crime, right?
Maybe not.
Okay, help me out.
I'm going to actually side with Mike for the purpose of steelmanning his argument.
Help me out.
The hate laws that do exist in the United States do have less support than most other laws, but the hate laws are aggravating circumstance laws. So I don't get convicted for saying I think Christians should be taxed at a different rate. What I do is, we think as a society, and I don't necessarily agree with this. This is an area I haven't really gotten my mind around yet, because there are some First Amendment concerns here, some thoughts, crimes concerns that I hear you expressing, Mike. But what happens is, I go into a synagogue and I shoot it up and kill a bunch of people. And as I'm doing it, I scream, "Die, Jews! Jews are evil and deserve to die." We as a society have said, and this by the way, I'm framing this on a real example of a guy that just shot up a synagogue that has been bombed and shot up before. Okay. We as a society have said doing that alone is horrible, but doing it while expressing and these hateful concepts makes it a little bit worse. So we're going to give you a little extra conviction time. Now, you and I can have a very interesting, long philosophical discussion about whether that enhanced concept, this enhances the crime, is thought crime, right? And whether or not all thought crime is bad. Like, I'm a First Amendment free speech absolutist. I have my problems with those. But what I wanted to clarify by going on this little diversion is to say there's no law that I am aware of in the United States that, again, would be what you described initially, which is the hate itself, absent any other crime, is what is the crime. They are always enhanced conditions. We have a lot of those. Like, oh, your victim was a minor.
I
We
agree.
think that's worse. So now you're getting more time. Oh, you're a repeat offender. We think that makes it worse because you haven't learned your lesson. You're getting more time. We as a society have just said, we think that doing it because you hate somebody's religion or gender or whatever, that makes it a little worse. So we're going to punish you more. Does that make sense, Mike?
Yeah, except that when you enter the thought realm, except for like, premeditated, versus non-premeditated, it's a slippery slope because it'll be, the example I'm thinking of is there was a gay guy, I guess, in North Dakota, and he got, the tar beat out of him, or it was bad, and killed, I believe. And so then they found the guys, and then they threw the book at him, and but they also added in, or maybe it was the reason for the hate crime. I should have looked it up before I called you. But
sure.
So just like you said, it's like you committed this crime, that's bad. And then we're also going to amplify it by calling it a hate crime as well. But
let me step in. I want to let you talk, but I want to clarify because you're using some language that is biased. We're not going to amplify it because we're calling it a hate crime. We're amplifying it because we, as the prosecutors, are bringing this charge, and I only bring those charges when I believe that I can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that was the state of this person's motivation, his motives, or in fact said those things while he did the crime, whatever your local jurisdiction is. So it's not just, I feel like throwing the book at him, so I'm going to charge him with jaywalking too. I have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury that these conditions were true. Now, that doesn't mean that the law is good. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I wanted to clarify that. It's not just a prosecutor's whim. You have to, the finder of fact, usually a jury in criminal cases, has to agree with the prosecutor beyond a reasonable doubt that all the elements of the enhancement of the crime were proven using evidence. So go ahead.
Well, and again, just to be clear, it is not the offense of the people at the state.
Correct.
Right? That is not, which is what you were talking about, Mike.
Yeah,
that is not what is part of these laws.
Yeah, it is
yes,
your
you're correct.
Stated motivation.
You have to create it. You have to do it an offense, and then you get punished for that. And then now with the hate laws, now we're going to add on to it. And I don't, it's really squishy because it's like, what were you thinking?
I mean,
guys dumb enough.
No. It's not what you were thinking. That's my point. If I'm silent and I go shoot up a synagogue, right? I have no evidence that that's my motivation. My defense attorney can get on the stand and say, maybe he hated a bunch of people. Maybe he had financial problems with them. Maybe they were all witnesses to a murder he created. We don't know why he did it. But if I shoot up the synagogue and I scream, die, Jews, die, I hate Jews, and this is why I'm doing it, to go to the other extreme, I'm going to introduce that as evidence, and the jury's going to agree with me that that was my motivation. So we have a system that provides some protections against that because you need to provide evidence, and the jury will get an instruction from the judge that says, in order to find for this enhancement, you have to agree that beyond a reasonable doubt, the state has proven these, whatever the elements are for that enhancement in your local jurisdiction. It's not this Hollywood.
It's not an easy.
You're going to get railroaded. Sure, there's corrupt cops and corrupt judges and bribed jurors, but the system as it exists is you have to prove the motivation, just like you have to prove all the elements of I caused the death of another human and it was unjustified. I have to prove all of those things to get a conviction. I also have to prove, again, I don't know your jurisdiction, but it'll be something like their stated motive was because of their religion or their race or their gender.
And
If I
that's
can
not-
prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, we as a society have said that makes it a little bit worse, so we're going to punish you a little bit more.
And that's not an easy bar to clear. It's not like just every single frickin' case that gets brought up where there's people of different religions or races or whatever like that, you know, it isn't the case, right?
Yeah.
And again, Mike, I think myself and Cross Examiner are on the same page with you when it comes to like, well, if we pass this law that says like a Christian can't read from the Bible, otherwise we're going to put him in jail. I think we're all on the same page with like, yeah, that's
100%.
not good. That's a bad thing. We don't want that. But most importantly, man, it really isn't the case. Like, it just really isn't happening. If there was an epidemic of this, I'd be on the front lines with you. The thing is, though, it seems to be where the epidemic is actually, where the front lines really are in a place where all three of us, you specifically, have previously agreed, yeah, I don't like that shit. So let's work on that shit first. And then we can come back in a month, in a year, in 2 weeks, 30 minutes. I don't care. But like, we can come back to this thing after we settle the thing that we all really see as super harmful, man.
Yeah, and I think I could get you to agree, Mike, that some thought crimes you accept them and they think that they're good. Can I give that a try?
I have a question for you, but sure, let's do it.
Let's do this one real quick.
We'll do this, and then we'll go to your
question is, I think what you're saying is we should never have a law where the person's intent factors into whether or not they violated the law. Intent should not be a factor, is kind of what you're saying. Is that correct?
No.
It's just they killed the guy, so they're guilty of murder. Whether they intended to do it or not is irrelevant.
No, there's different kinds of murders. If you're premeditating, I really hate this person because they stole money from me, or I just am jealous, whatever. There's a lot of reasons where intent does matter.
Okay, so we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
That element of criminal law is called mens rea, the guilty mind. You have to have a crime, you typically need a guilty mind, mens rea, and actus rea, the guilty act. The guilty act is killing the guy. The guilty mind is intending to kill a guy. However, there's some laws where that's not required. That's what we call manslaughter. I didn't mean to kill him, but my guilty mind was, I was so negligent, I was so careless, I had such a disrespect for human life that I did something and accidentally killed somebody. We've found that to be a crime. So not only do we think that having the intent to kill somebody and doing it is a crime, you have to have both. The intent matters. We've also found not being careful enough is a crime. Go look at fraud cases, which are probably the most similar cases to these hate crime enhancements that you're talking about. When I go to prosecute, I don't prosecute fraud, but when an attorney goes to prosecute fraud cases, the elements of fraud is I intentionally make a false statement of fact to you in order to induce you to give me a thing of value, and my statement does, in fact, you rely on my false statement reasonably. I have to prove all those elements, and one of them is my intent to lie to you. That's why fraud cases are so hard to prove, just like some of these hate crime enhancements. I have to prove the intent. And if I really thought that this car was owned by Elvis when I sold it to you and told you that, who can say? There's no memo that says, ha, 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 I'm going to sell SR this car and I'm going to tell him that it was owned by Elvis. If I don't have a manifesto that I'm going to go in and shoot up the synagogue, or I keep focusing on the synagogue because it's new in the news, but if I don't have that documented, like usually it's somebody's social media feeds because they're all crazy and they post on there. If I don't have any of that, it's going to be really hard to get that, just the same as fraud cases. But I think you and I both agree that the mindset, the thought I'm having of I want to deceive you, that in and of itself is criminal when they act upon it.
I would agree with that, yes.
There we go.
So
cool.
Then we're down to just do we want to extend that intent to this is why I kill people or harm people because of these protected classes? And there's law reviewed articles written on both sides of that. That's an interesting discussion to have.
I would argue, for instance, that in general, right, laws about restrictions as to the behavior that we can and can't do, just like what you were talking about a minute ago, Cross-Examiner, about taxing cigarettes and stuff. Why do we do that? To discourage the behavior of using those products. Why would we specifically make a law that says it's an extra level of punishment when you add somebody's religion or gender or sexual orientation or anything like that? It's because we are explicitly trying to discourage that. There's various femicide laws that have been going around a handful of different countries in the past few years. And one of the biggest reasons is because the individuals that are pushing for those are saying specifically, by making this a little bit of an extra thing over the top. Yes, you murdered somebody, but it just so happens that you murdered your partner, which I think happens like 3 times a day, like every day, by the way. Somebody is, a woman is murdered by somebody that tells them they love her, So to really tackle that issue, we need to make a law that specifically addresses it. Like, I understand that argument, that's all I'll say on that. And again, is it right? Is it perfect? Is it the best legal system? We could talk about that for freaking ever. But I will say this, Mike, I really, really fucking appreciate you, man. I really appreciate you doing the reset with us and coming back to this. I genuinely feel like the last 12 minutes of this call have been so much better. And I just greatly appreciate that. And I know you said you had a question for us. So I want to get to that real quick. And then we got some other callers I want to grab as well. So what was that thought or that question, Mike?
My question was for both of you that as much as the hate laws are being used as an add-on, I think they're too dangerous to have on the books because they can be abused. They can be separated out. Pretty soon it's just the hate law where you did this, you did that. And then the groups that are protected within the hate laws can expand rapidly. So would you... I'm
going to agree that those things can happen in certain governmental systems.
Yeah.
However, right now, that's not the state of the law. Your first statement of having them on the books creates a slippery slope was your basic argument. There are legal minds who make that argument. I think it is an interesting argument to investigate. That said, I think you then mischaracterized what's going on. Again, I think that, again, it's not that a prosecutor can just declare you're getting an extra 2 years because the graffiti that you wrote on the synagogue was motivated by hate. They have to bring the charges.
Right.
They have to give the defense attorney all the evidence they have before the trial. The defense gets to raise a defense. They have to prove to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that that was, in fact, again, I'm not sure about your local jurisdiction, but that was the motive for the graffiti. And I will point out, we kept using murder. That's usually not going to be enough of a deterrent. We still punish them, like getting an extra 2 years or whatever.
Right.
But when you get down to graffiti and local sort of shit that kids do to scare people, there's a deterrent effect there. If you do it because it's the synagogue or black people or whatever it may be, you might think twice because you're aware that if I do it because of that, I might spend an extra 6 months or a year in jail. And so you do have a deterrent effect. But again, we don't have people going to jail. There are no laws on the books and no enforceable laws. There might be a law from 1620 that never got repealed but is unenforceable, that say that you can go to jail for something you say, period, just for what you say. And 2, the hate crime enhancement systems that I am aware of are what I described, which is you have to commit a crime, and then the prosecutor has to, beyond a reasonable doubt, show that you fulfilled all the elements of the enhancement, and then you will get an extra punishment. So nobody's going to jail just for being Christian or thinking thoughts or being a member of an out-group or in-group or whatever. Do we not want a society like you described, where we have an ever-expanding group of the in-group and out-group? I agree, we don't. And we will fight, you and I will be marching arm in arm in the streets of Minneapolis, if that's the first state that a city that enacts such a law, to fight against it. It would be the worst law that ever passed.
Yeah, but we're not there, thankfully. And hopefully,
and if it is happening, bring it to us.
Yeah,
bring us the evidence that it's actually happening.
Exactly, and hopefully the 3 of us and all the many other people in this country that share our values about the things that are very much definitely happening in that Christian nationalist vein that we all very much disagree with and absolutely demonstrably cause harm. Let's all get together and fucking stop that shit. Let's all get together and deal with that.
Yeah,
first,
absolutely.
man.
In fact, that's a good ending point. There is an intersection here. So I think a light bulb went on. Mike's characterization is more like powers we give to presidents or elected officials, where like Patriot Act, right? How do you define terrorism? Or the Posse Comitatus Act and the Insurrection Act. How do you define an emergency? I think Mike's concern is if you give and you and I would be in agreement on this, Mike, if you create a law and write it in such a way that says, if so-and-so decides it's an emergency, or you write it very carefully to say, if evil cultists who hate America attack somebody, or say I'm an evil cultist and I want to attack America, and they say that, then the president, and if he finds that, can then imprison them or deport them or whatever. Then you've given somebody this interpretation place to play in, and then you get this ever-growing bubble. That's not what you have in criminal law. There's a concept. You may have heard it as something like ex post facto law. It's like that's sort of the core of it. We never will convict somebody of a law that was not clear and in existence when they committed the crime. So if I create a law that says, if we don't like what you're saying, then we're going to give you more crime, and merely by the prosecutor or judge saying, yes, that falls into the category of thing we don't like saying, that would be unconstitutional for being vague. And that vagueness rule that we have, you can't have vague laws, is a form of ex post facto laws. We don't imprison people or punish people because they did something that wasn't against the law at that time. And if it's too vague to know what thoughts are good and what thoughts are bad, we don't convict anybody. So that is the intersection of what I think you're worried about, which is what we're seeing from the federal government now, of declaring people who are shot in the street in the back, declaring them terrorists that wanted to, and assassins, because by making that definitional bubble blow up, they can do whatever they want. That's what we see in the real world happening right now. That is not what you get in criminal law, when you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, under oath, using evidence, that all of these elements that were published and on the books ahead of time actually were held true, and you have a defense attorney who can say this law is unconstitutional. So that's the intersection, I think, that we should compare what SR is saying. What's really happening right now is the biggest gaslighting we've ever seen in the nation's history, and it's about fascism, Christian nationalism, all combining into an electorate that has said, as I said in the opening, 20% of the people, of the conservatives in this country, just 3 years ago said, I know it would be illegal, but I want the government to declare and make this country a Christian nation. Yeah. That is
that's wrong.
Indisputable proof. That poll was very clear, very well done by Politico. So,
right.
Sorry again for going off, but
no.
That
I think that's great.
Very interesting to me.
No, I think that is a fantastic way to wrap this up, because I think that intersection is something that we should be focused on. And again, some of those fears that you're talking about, Mike, in terms of going too far and expanding too fast and all of this stuff. Yeah, man, we're right there with you in terms of the concern about the harm that will cause and the erosion of our government and the rights that the citizens of it have. The problem is, man, I genuinely just think the arrow needs to be pointed in a slightly different direction from where you're pointing it right now, man. But again, I think it sounds like in previous calls you have also agreed to that as well. So I really appreciate you, Mike. I know I'm just going to drop you real fast, and I know you've got more to say, and I'm so sorry, but we have been talking for a minute, and I got some other really cool calls I want to get to. But thank you so much, man, and I appreciate you resetting with me and having a much better call. I love that. Like I said, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But I feel like it worked that time, and we were able to. It was
brilliant, SR.
We were able to okay, let's take a step back and actually make some progress. And we got there. I was happy with that. And again, I thought that was a great place. I love to try to end this stuff on a moment for us all to go like, oh, okay, I kind of see how that connects. Let me go look at that shit some more. you know, because again, just like we talked about at the beginning, and I swear, y'all, we didn't plan this, but just like we talked about at the beginning, where it is a good idea to regularly check yourself and your beliefs and your groups and all of that good stuff, man. Whatever label it is, whatever belief you have, whatever building you're going to on whatever fucking day of the week, given however much percentage of your tithes and all that, it is worth taking an extra look every so often and just going, hey, what am I missing here? What I get wrong, you know? Because I guarantee we've all got at least something.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
We are going to go out to California. We got some other cool calls here. I'm excited for. We are going to talk to, I think it's Moises. I'm probably saying that wrong, Moises. So just correct us.
Moisa, maybe?
Moisa? I wasn't sure either. Yeah. I can say Hernandez, but they're an agnostic, he, him pronouns, and wants to talk about this show, basically, and proof of God. So, hey, tell us how badly we messed up your name. I'm so sorry.
It's in Spanish, so it's Moises, right? Not Moses. It's Moises.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Moisa?
Okay. Moises.
Okay.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, hey, yeah. Thanks so much for giving us a call. What would you like to talk about?
Well, yeah, well, I'm kind of new into religion again, I guess you could say. It's called and I was wondering why, like, when people like call in this show, right? What's it called? They call in, or you guys come in with the preset position. We're like, we're like supposed to prove God to you, right? I feel like recently, I feel like a lot of religious people don't come with the presupposition that like you can prove God 100%. Because I think like the argument of like,
So I think while yes, there is a large swath of people that adhere to a handful of different religions around the world that would probably very much be like, oh yeah, I don't have any proof or anything. There are, in fact, very much groups of people that would 100% stand on the statement that they do have definitive proof. And not only do they have that proof, but it is so evident that we should also believe it. And by not believing it, we are in fact demonic or destroying the fabric of society or other
just
things
in trouble.
like that. Yeah, or just in trouble. Right. So like, yeah, I get you. And if what you're saying, Moises, is like, man, that's not really where I'm at with my belief, then it's like, okay, I'm not going to push you on that. But there are a shit ton of people that yeah, they do feel that way. So
for sure. And but I was contemplating on this type of stuff recently. I feel like, I don't know, to me it's just like not possible. I don't see that like the answer to that question will ever get answered. What do you think about that? If you want to comment on my comment.
Sure.
Yeah, a couple of different thoughts. I mean, one is like, yeah, that's kind of the whole agnosticism of it, that whole philosophical thought process about like whether or not we can or cannot have knowledge. I would say that if you accept the claim that you can't have knowledge on a particular question, you can't then have a conclusion about that, right? If you can't have the knowledge as to whether or not fairies are real, then it seems just absolutely obviously illogical to then say, I believe in fairies, right? That's kind of where I'm at on that. What do you think, cross-examiner?
Yeah, I think I'm sort of a where the rubber hits the road type of guy. I don't mind or complain about people who are like, I'm Christian, but I can't prove that God exists, right? Is the subset of people that you're talking about. And I think there's probably a large portion of people that do that, but they don't call into our show because people call into our show to answer our question of what do you believe and why, and have these sort of hearty discussions. I don't mind those people, but my concern is, and this is not a slippery slope argument, it's just a sort of a bell curve argument, that a certain percentage of people who develop a belief in a deity also believe that that deity wants something. And then they develop a belief that they know somehow what that deity wants. And they also accept some sort of claim that this deity is really, really important, or if they do what the deity wants, then they get a reward like an afterlife, right? So it's not the kooky belief that there's a God, even though I can't prove that there is one, right? I wouldn't do that in the area of law. If I came to you and said, hey, man, I've got this guy, he's a prince in Zambia, and he's got $10 million in the bank, but we need to pay all these fees, and once we get it out, he'll give you $1 million. You'd be very skeptical of that. You don't go around believing things until they're disproven. You tend to want evidence. You want evidence of who the prince was, and show me the paperwork, and let me get a lawyer and look at it and all that stuff. Well, this is the most important question anybody's ever proposed. Like, is there an afterlife? What do I have to do to get it? So again, I don't mind people who are like, I'm Christian. It makes me feel good. I like to think that I'm going to see grandpa one day. No, I can't prove it to anybody. But those people, some subset of those, either from the outset or eventually will develop this concept of, well, my preacher keeps saying that God wants me to be good, and good is defined as voting for these laws that take away rights from gay people, or voting to ignore climate change evidence because God promised that he would never flood the world again, which is what a sitting congressman said in committee on the floor of Congress, and he was on the science committee. So yes, I agree there's a subset of people where there's no problem, but they cover for and hide another population that believe it, and whether or not they believe they can prove it, they act upon it, and they do so in ways that I find more often than not causes more harm than good. And that's my concern. So that's why I want people to, I want to help them face your conclusion, which is you don't have enough evidence to prove that this thing exists. So maybe you should moderate your extremism. If I can get people to ratchet it down just a bit, I think we've done our job.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Moises?
It was a lot to take in.
Sorry. Basically, to summarize, yeah, I agree with you, but the people I'm worried about are the ones who are trying to pass laws like put the Ten Commandments in the schools, and we now have pastors can be school counselors in Florida, all of that stuff where harm is done. So I'm not worried about the people you're talking about. I'm worried about the people who say, I know the will of God, and I'm going to use the levers of government to make it happen.
And I'm right there with him.
I get 100% what you're saying. Well, I don't know about 100% because I didn't hear the whole conversation that you said, but I think I get where you're going with that.
Yeah, and I think both of us, I don't want to speak for SR, we're probably in the same boat as you. If I'm asked, are you convinced that there's a God? I'm going to say no, I have not been convinced. Why have I not been convinced? Because nobody's presented me evidence that proves that particular version of a God is in fact real. And I think most Christians, when cornered, will back into that conclusion and use a word like, oh, well, I just take it on as a matter of faith or whatever. And then again, that's fine. Those are not the people out there saying, God tells me I need to vote for folks that shoot people.
Correct. It's the ones that call into our shows and say, I know that I know that I know that I know that I know, and that's the reason why gay people can't be in public life. Those are the people that are the ones that were like, hey, man, we got some problems with. Also, by the way, Moises, I'll throw this out to you. If you've never heard this term before, theological non-cognitivism is a really, really fun kind of philosophical journey you can go on that is in this vein. It has more to do with about like the ability for the human mind to even comprehend these types of conversations and thoughts. And so it falls into that, like whether or not we're actually able to have, any evidence pointing one way or the other. But I know we shouted a bunch at you, man. I'm so sorry. It's kind of just the nature of these things, but we'll give you a minute or two. What do you think, man?
I was gonna write that word down, theological, whatever, just to see if I search it up.
Yeah, non-cognitivism.
Yeah, if you just type in theological and then start typing N-O-N,
it'll
Google
come up.
It for you.
It'll come up. It's the only fucking thing. But yeah, theological non-cognitivism.
Oh, okay.
And you can always rewatch this video too, of course, and check it out.
Yeah,
but
I got it.
Cross-examiner's totally right. You start going down that route on Google, it's going to be like, there's no way you're talking about fuck anything else but this. But give us some thoughts here, man.
Okay. Well, on the thoughts, I agree with what you said. I think if we do go on faith, we should moderate the extremists. And that's what I got from that. And that if you're a good person and you're religious, whatever floats your boat. That's what I got from that. And
Yeah,
agree with it,
yeah.
And
I guess
say,
my main question is always,
better
if
question,
you
though.
come to me and say, I believe in the Christian God, somebody else comes to me and says, I believe in this other God. My question to both of you is, could you guys please confer and tell me who's right? And I'm sitting on the sidelines, and for thousands of years, nobody anywhere has come up to an answer to that question. So I think I totally agree with you, Moises, is even within, here's a quick story. Louisiana's state legislature voted to make the Bible the official book of the state. It's an example I've used lots before. States vote to have the official bird and the official snack and the official whatever. My sport in Maryland, our official sport is, you'd think it would be lacrosse, but I think it's jousting, interestingly enough.
No way.
But in Louisiana, they voted to make the Bible the official book of the state. And you can raise all your First Amendment questions there, but that bill failed to pass. Why? They couldn't agree on which version of the Bible should be the official book. The Catholic version, the Baptist version, NIV, King James. And that says a whole bunch to me. So think of that when you start thinking about people claiming that they're certain about which things are out there. Like Louisiana couldn't get their act together to even pick a Bible.
Right. You said, I think I heard you say you had one more question, Moises.
Oh, awesome. We'll see what's. I didn't come super prepared for this conversation.
That's okay. No worries. Neither did SR.
Yeah.
All right. What's called? What do you guys think about like the things in the Bible that Jesus has, or that are written that he has done, like the miracles he has done? I don't know how many you have memorized that are in the Bible. Sure. You wouldn't say that's evidence for like a potentially like a God outside of like the universe?
Take it away, SR.
I wouldn't. And one of the reasons I wouldn't is because in all honesty, man, while we in Western countries may have the Bible as a foundation, and we may talk about how those miracles are just phenomenal, they pale in comparison to the thousands of years of history from Zoroastrianism and Hinduism and various tribal religions and cults and belief systems all over the world. I mean, we have just as fantastical, if not more interesting stories coming from all of these other religions. And I don't take stock in any of those. I think they are absolutely incredibly interesting and fun. And maybe, just like with Aesop's fables, we can find that kernel of truth. But did a grasshopper and an ant really have a conversation about whether or not they should store up food for the winter? No, they didn't. That's not what happened. I'm glad that people have used stories to tell us about ourselves and the world and a better world that we could hope for one day, right? I love that. I love that shit, man. That's why I like Star Wars, It's got this whole like, woo, go out there and fight for the good stuff, like, yeah, that's awesome. But no, man, the stories about Luke doing all these incredible things with Yoda in a freaking bog somewhere no, that's the same to me as all the miracle claims of the Bible, because none of these have been reliably demonstrated ever.
So put another way, but going back to my question of you guys sorted out amongst each other, Muhammad split the moon in half.
Yeah, big deal.
And Muhammad, the story of that, the recantation of that, has people claiming to be eyewitnesses. It was written 1,000 years more recent than the Gospels that depict Jesus's miracles. So it's a much more recent writing. Claims to have eyewitnesses that the Gospels do not have any eyewitnesses and are written by anonymous authors, even though they say they're Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Anybody who's gone to school to study the Bible will tell you, yeah, that's just church tradition. We don't know who wrote them, and we don't have any originals, whereas we do have documents purporting to be originals for the Muslim faith. So if I'm going to believe anybody, maybe I'll believe the miracles that the Muslim faith writes down. I hope that you see the point I'm making is like, how do I tell the difference? Saying, well, look at everything Jesus did. I can turn around and say, look at everything Muhammad did. Now, how do I tell which of these two stories is actually true?
Well, the Muhammad one sounds pretty simple to me, to be honest, unless I didn't catch it all. What's called, because I would think we would still see it being split in half as of
oh, ye of little faith.
That's how impressive Allah
God
is.
obviously miracled the moon back together, just like Jesus miracled walk on water. Miracled?
Hey, who did you say has a little
miracled?
Who you thinking? I'm just joking.
Yeah. I mean,
the point is that there's other miracles in there, right? All the religions have these stories.
Right.
How do I tell what method? Is there a method we could use to determine which of them are true and which of them are false? I cited a bunch of problems with the Christian one, which is all the Gospels were written at least 1.5 generations after Jesus died. None of them are eyewitness accounts. All of them are written anonymously, and we don't have the originals of any of those documents. So
you brought up a really good point, Moises. About,
how can I tell if that's actually true or not?
Yeah, and you already touched on this, man. Even without knowing that's where cross-examiner was going to go, you were already like, well, dude, we'd see evidence that the moon was split in half. Yeah, we would. Yeah, we would, man. We'd be able to look at it from a fucking telescope, just like if people came back to life or people could just walk on water or shit, you know? Like, we would totally see evidence of that. And because we don't see evidence of that, it makes more sense to say, hey, man, these old stories, as fascinating as they may be, as much beautiful morals or wisdom or insight to ourselves or humanity we can gain from it, they are just stories. And that's okay, because we can take the good ones and we can throw away the bad ones and we can make better ones. And that's what we should do.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah,
okay,
if you can come up with a method to determine which ones are true and which are false, you will win a Nobel Prize. You'll create a school of religiosity in every university around the world.
Convert on
it'll be great.
Spot.
Yeah,
you'll have us.
I don't think we can do that, and so we're coming from the position of the default position is to not accept a claim until you've been presented with sufficient evidence. So just like I haven't been presented sufficient evidence that the earth is 6,000 years old and that there's a dinosaur in my backyard, I also haven't been presented sufficient evidence to believe that there was a person who rose from the dead and that there's an afterlife and there's a God who created the universe. I'm open to being presented that evidence, but until that time arrives, the proper attitude is to say, well, I am not convinced that that's true. And therefore, I protect myself from being gullible. I'm not calling you gullible. I'm just saying you protect yourself from being swindled.
Of course. Okay, for sure. Okay.
Well, thanks, man. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up real quick?
I'm going to think of an example of something I thought of beforehand. Jesus healing the leopards, people with the leopards, right? I want to bring up this example because sometimes I think maybe some of the stories of Jesus being true are real, but you got like misconstrued through history.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with like that thought process, you know, that like maybe there were just some things that we didn't fully understand going on. And, you know, like we didn't have germ theory of disease back then. So like maybe, you know, and also like remission happens, man, for just normal things like disease. People get cancer that's like, you know, fucking life terminating. And then all of a sudden it just disappears. Like, why? I said, well, because that shit just happens on its own sometimes, you know? So like, is it pretty likely the case that there was some dude walking around at some point 2,000 years ago that like walked up to some poor people or some lepers or some blind people and like
let me crack your back.
Yeah, cracked his back or rubbed some mud on somebody's face or washed somebody's feet or something. Like, yeah, like the likelihood that happened probably pretty up there, you know.
But we've seen those healings today. Correct. And what are they?
Right.
They're scams.
They're scams.
You're telling me there's not scams back then, et cetera. The proper answer is we don't know. You can't just say, what if they're true? The first and foremost primary question is this true?
Yeah.
And we don't have any evidence that, I mean, there are a whole group of people, of academics out there who question whether the character of Jesus even actually existed in one person versus being an amalgam, sort of like Robin Hood is a story of a bunch of different people sort of combined into one, or King Arthur or something like that. So first you have to say, here's evidence that Jesus actually existed and that he did all of these things. I do have a book for you. I pulled it off my shelf. It's called Bad Faith by Dr. Paul Offit, and I would recommend you read it. And it's because it's not Bad Faith. Bad Faith by Paul Offit. The subtitle is something about modern medicine, when religious belief undermines modern medicine. And the reason I think you should read this is Paul Offit is a doctor, and it's a study of faith healing and how it has killed all these different people right around the world, especially in America. It traces the history of children.
Would you say that's like the placebo effect?
This is, no, it's quite the opposite. People die even though they are getting faith healing. So read this book, and he does a great job. His position is, if Jesus was anything in the Bible, his character was a healer. He was a physician. Like, if you had to pick one attribute, that's the character of Jesus. And that was a shift historically. Before the New Testament, before the character of Jesus, children were property. They were tortured and killed for entertainment. Women would give birth in garbage piles or garbage pits in case it was a girl and they didn't want a girl. They had these things called foundational sacrifices described in the Bible, where you take a young child or a newborn, you put them in an urn or a box, you bury them and build a foundation of your building upon that now dead kid that starves to death in a box. And that is a blessing because you have sacrificed your child to get a blessing. There is stories of David doing this. It's rampant throughout old ancient culture. Foundational sacrifices. You can just Google that. But he traces the story about how Jesus comes in and says, what was it? Harm not the little children, or don't fear not, or chastise not the little children, bring them to me. He's pro-child, pro-healing. So there's a ton of great stuff in there, to your point, about healing and health and being nice to kids. It doesn't mean that it's true. And even if it were true, we've got a whole bunch of people listening to the New Testament and becoming faith healers and killing their kids. There's a county in Idaho called Canyon County that has a graveyard that has 600 plus graves of children in it, because that is the last state in America that gives a criminal defense to negligent manslaughter if you deny your kid reasonable medicine, like some antibiotics, and they die because of it. And they are killing their kids to this day because they believe what's said in the Bible, that if you anoint the skin with oil and pray over them, they will get better. So it's just fine to sit here and say, what if Jesus was a healer? And what if that? What if that? What I see in the real world is people follow the instructions to their best of their ability, and they're killing their kids. And I think that's horrible. And I think that's why you shouldn't believe things until you have sufficient evidence that it's true and it works.
Yeah. And you got, man, Moises, I'm sorry, we don't normally give a bunch of homework, but this was great. This is a great call, and it sounded like you were very interested in learning more and kind of shifting those views.
I'm just gonna look this stuff up later when I have more energy,
Yeah, definitely. No, take some time with it, man. It's not a thing that's a 5 minute. It's a years long journey. We cross-examiner, myself, all the people here. We've all been through this for years and years and years, and we're still changing, we're still growing, we're still catching new information every day, man. So I just appreciate you being open and willing to look into the stuff and being willing to change when you're presented with things that should warrant that. So but I'm going to drop you unceremoniously, Moises, because I am so sorry. We have still some other calls, and I'm sure the crew eventually wants to go have some dinner. But thank you so much, brother. I really do appreciate you, and I hope you call us back. Go check out some of that cool stuff. That sounds like a really good book, by the way. Bad Faith.
It's great. I think everybody should read it. Here,
really
quick question. When did this goes to the whole anti-vaxxer thing. What happened that caused the diagnosis of child abuse to skyrocket in the history of the United States? At what point, what thing happened?
Oh, What thing would have happened? I don't know. Maybe polio? Maybe
The
polio
invention of the X-ray machine.
Oh, because then you could start seeing, yeah,
How
that makes a
horrific is
lot of,
that?
that is
Before
really
then,
horrific.
not a lot of
Yeah,
child abuse. After then,
yeah,
there was a ton of child abuse.
that's really
I
fucked
guess
up.
X-ray machines cause
Right,
child abuse. No,
right,
it's
right,
X-ray
right.
machines let you diagnose it.
It's almost like, and I know this is crazy, and I'm not sure if there's any other thing out there that this could be related back to, but it's almost like there is a problem that's occurring. And once we start calling it out as a problem, like it rises for a little bit, you know, and then it goes down because now
And it plateaus or whatever. Sure.
yeah, it's weird. I don't know if there's anything out there that could be referenced to. I don't know if there's anything at all, but
strange.
Oh, well, we'll figure it out someday. I'm sure we have some wonderful, wonderful viewers out there, both in the YouTubes and the TikTok lands, that will tell us what we're missing. But good news is this next call is like straight up your alley, I feel like, bro. Which is great for me because honestly, I am just going to kick back and do even less than I have already done today, folks. So we've got James is an atheist, he, him pronouns out in Ohio. Wants to talk about kind of the Insurrection Act a little bit. So
all right.
I will say before I bring you on, James, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So we just got to make sure we stay within those bounds. But otherwise, hey, thanks so much for giving us a call, James. You were on with Cross Examiner and Secular Rarity. What's up?
Okay, well, I'll try to avoid politics because that's what the call screener said. I saw a short by Seth Andrews. I know he's not on the show, so I'm not directing it to him. But he was talking about the Insurrection Act. And above, two things that the right talks about. First of all, they talk about how the Civil War was really about states' rights. It wasn't about slavery. It was about states' rights. And yet the same states don't seem to have a problem with ICE coming into the states and pretty much taking over.
Right. It's hypocritical. Yeah. What do you have a question about, like, what is the Insurrection Act, or like could it be enacted, or
just kind of toss out there and see what other people think. And if I can, there's just one more thing about the Insurrection Act. They also say, we always hear that they're against big government. Government is too big. But look at government now. They're not against big government. They just want big government to be their government. They want to be a driver's seat.
Yeah, and I would say that kind of sentiment you're discussing, James, is one that I think we have seen in like the evangelical purity culture, super hardcore religious, for a long time, where the values that are stated as being important to them are demonstrably not by their actions, behaviors, statements, policies and programs that they enact. There is very much a group of people right now in this country that it seems to me the principles that they have supposedly stood on for decades are just eroding right under their feet, right in front of our very eyes, because they are, in fact, not actually interested in those principles or values, but they are, in fact, interested in things like power or just hoarding wealth, I would say that is why, James, I have been on this big kick for a while about working with groups, whether or not they are religious, that share our values and align in that vision for where we want to see our country in the world, right? I think it is so much more important for us to be finding those individuals and those groups, whatever that label may be, right? Call them Christian, call them atheist, call them Muslim, whatever that may be. If we align on the values of things like, hey, man, I don't actually want the government stepping into my private affairs, like, say, medical decisions with my fucking doctor who I've been going to for 10 years, right? Or, whether or not I'm allowed to have these thoughts, whether or not I'm allowed to go to church or not go to church or whatever. I'm with you, man. I think the goal should be finding those that are blatant hypocrites and then being like, hey, let's not work with them, right? let's go find the people that actually align with their values, man. So yeah, I think broadly speaking, I'm with you there. Cross, you got any thoughts real quick?
I think what I'll do, I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, the birthplace of the Civil War. That's where the Fort Sumter off the shores of Charleston was where the first shots were fired. My dad was in the Navy. There's a big Navy station there. And then we moved all over. And I was then ended up back in Charleston for most of my childhood. So born and raised Charleston, South Carolinian. I'm going to read a section from the Articles of Secession of South Carolina as to why they wanted to leave the United States before the Civil War. Quote, they talk about how the United States had allowed slavery, and then say, but an increasing hostility on the part of the non-slaveholding states to the institution of slavery has led to a disregard of their obligations, the other states, i.e. enforcing the fugitive law where you had to return states, et cetera. The laws of the general government have ceased to affect the objects of the Constitution. If you're not going to return our slaves, we're leaving. Further on, it says, a geographical line has been drawn across the Union, and all the states north of that line have united in the election of a man to the high office of the President of the United States, whose opinions and purposes are hostile to slavery. This is the single document that they published explaining why they were leaving the Union, and it is the state that started the Civil War. So I really don't want to hear, now, and you're not saying it, but cite this if anybody comes to you and says the Civil War wasn't really about slavery, it was about states' rights, or more technically, hey, you're not enforcing the laws we passed to make you to return our slaves. Yeah, technically the law was about states' interaction and enforcing each other's laws and honoring some constitutional commitments.
Yeah.
But what it was about was because nobody wanted to own slaves anywhere more in the North and thought it was horrible. So anybody tries to play those word games with you on this issue or similar issues, such as calling a bill big and bold and beautiful, or shooting somebody because they were assassin, even though they were helping a woman and had you back to you. If anybody wants to play those games, you can pull out the evidence and force it on them. The problem is it's a gish gallop, right? Every day we're hearing from people who have our worst interests at heart. We're hearing 80 different claims that are all false. And if for you to prove to people that they're full of shit takes time and effort. And they know that. It's called flood the zone in some areas. So, but yes, your first point about that, the Civil War really struck a nerve with me. So I wanted to read that and say they were full of shit then, and they're full of shit now.
Yeah, the same arguments, the same bullshit ideology, all of that runs through, unfortunately. And yeah, just in case anybody is confused, the Civil War was not about interstate commerce law.
Yeah,
yes. Not about
what I say in the shorthand when somebody says it was about states' rights, and I say it was about states' rights to own slaves. Like
exactly. Pretty explicit.
Yeah.
And literally every single one of the state constitutions that broke away to join the Confederacy, they all have a section right at the beginning that is exactly like South Carolina's. They all do. They all are very explicit about it. So if it wasn't about slavery, tell them. You know, they're the ones.
It wasn't a slight increase in the tax of their cotton.
Right.
It was actually a massive increase in the tax of their cotton because they couldn't
right, because they couldn't have right. You actually had to pay people. Yeah. No, but James, I know you've been waiting for a long time, brother. Is there anything else you wanted to shout out?
What was it about the
quick?
Insurrection Act specifically? That made me curious.
Before I go, could I recommend a couple of things to your previous call?
Well, my question was, what was your point or question about specifically about the Insurrection Act? I find that interesting.
Let's hit that if we can.
Points that I want to throw out, like how they say it wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights. You know, so I didn't really have.
Okay. I got it. Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. An administration sending troops into a state against their wishes further demonstrates hypocrisy on the principle of states' rights. I agree with you. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wonder if I could toss in a couple of recommendations for the caller just before me about, I guess, faith healing or something. A couple of books I think you might be interested in.
Give some quick ones, man.
Okay, there's a couple, and maybe a website. The books I'm thinking about, these are both older books, I think back in the 80s or something. One is Faith Healers by James Randi, probably the best book.
Oh, yeah. James Randi, absolutely. Okay, what's the...
The other one is, I don't recall the author, but I think it's called Deadly Blessings, and it's specifically about, what do they call it, science, what do they call it? I'm saying my mind drew a blank.
Faith healing?
Yeah, it's faith healing. It's like a thing on hand. It's one of the, I would say, one of the major religions. It's not like a cult like Scientology or something.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but anyway,
probably Christian Science.
Yeah, thank you. That's it.
Yeah,
and finally, the website. It's been some time since I checked out, so I don't know if it's still up. It's called Child, and the letters stand for Child Health Care is a legal duty.
Yes, 100%. I think I'm calling an audible here. Normally, we don't want to promote websites, but I sort of had an instinct that you would promote this one. So the person who ran Child for a long time, and this story is in the book I mentioned, Bad Faith. Read it. I believe it's the same person. If not, I'm getting my stories mixed up, but she has a similar tale. One of the stories arcs in Bad Faith is he recounts a woman who was a Christian Scientist, and her child died a horribly painful, prolonged death. They recount all of that. She ends up testifying before Congress to Richard Mondale, who was going to run for president one day. And his landmark act, his legacy was a Child Protection Act, a federal Child Protection Act. That's sort of the cap of the arc of, before the X-ray machine, we had no idea what we were doing. X-ray machine comes along. We gather 20 years of evidence. We now know child abuse is going on. We're going to regulate against it. Mondale does this. She gets her to testify about what she did and her motivations. She's mournful. She creates this organization to fight against Christian Scientists and faith healing.
Yeah,
and they go to pass the law. And as the regulations are being promulgated by the Department of Health back then, I don't think it's HHS. Back then it was something else. There's two Christian Scientists in Nixon's administration, Haldeman and I forget who the other one was, but two of the people that were in on Watergate and all that stuff, they are Christian Scientists, and they see this law come about and realize, if this law that says, again, this is a secular law that has nothing to do with your religion. It just says, if you do these things, deny health care to your child that would be easy to get and you should do, you can be prosecuted or fined or whatever. They see that as a death blow to Christian Science. So they go in and they change the law and create an religious exemption to this, that if any states wants funding from this new Mondale's Act, they have to accept that exemption. And so 48 states accepted, and I think it was Hawaii maybe, who refused to exempt religious belief from this law, but everybody else exempted religious belief. So child abuse in the name of religion continued, and slowly the states realized this was a fucking devious thing that the Nixon administration did, and repealed the exemption. Quickly, the feds did away with it, and then all the states appealed it. Idaho is the last state, and have never repealed that exemption that the Christian Scientists in the Nixon administration snuck into the regulations to Mondale's bill. That's a story. She is deeply, the person you talk about, this website, Child, she is deeply involved throughout that entire history. It is a very good website. I seem to remember it is not being updated anymore because somebody else took over that project.
It looks like
it is a good, if you look at the history of Child as an acronym, she's done a lot of work, and she's been working tirelessly to try to repeal that law in Idaho. And the state, why won't the state legislators vote against that law? Why won't they repeal that law in Idaho? It always comes out of committee. The committee agrees when they hear the evidence, like, shit, we need to get rid of this law. It goes to the floor, and everybody votes against it. 60-something% vote against it. And they say, I don't want to infringe upon the religious liberties of my fellow Christians in Idaho.
It looks
religion poisons fucking everything.
It looks like Rita Swan is
That's
that
her name.
woman.
Thank you.
Rita
Yeah.
Swan,
Yeah, that's
and
her.
Child USA is their current
Yeah.
nonprofit that is looking into that. So yeah, thank you, man. We appreciate you, James. And I hate to have
What
to
you said.
go ahead, say it real quick because I'm gonna have to drop you unceremoniously here in a second. Real quick, man.
Okay, well, yeah, what you said about some other person taking over a child, that reminds me of that one that took over. There was a group that was against Scientology, and, and the group against them lost it. So I think that was called CAN or something like that, anti-Scientology. So it wound up Scientology getting all these files about people who were leaving the church. And that's why it just sounds like the same thing.
Yeah, there is definitely some crazy stuff out there with the Church of Scientology and all the files that they have on people. Actually, there's really interesting stories about them and the IRS and how they intimidated IRS agents and yeah, had these charges dropped and stuff. It's really fucked up. But anyway, James, thank you so much, man, for hanging on this whole time. I really, really do appreciate it, man. We are going to let our crew go have some dinner eventually. But thank you so much for paying attention to stuff and you know, keeping your ears open to all this. And I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, man. And call us back again. So I'm sorry I'm dropping you unceremoniously. I know you probably had more to say, but we are getting near the end. But before we get out of here, I want to see if our amazing and incredible backup host could come on here for just a second. Just pop his little face up there. Look at that.
Here we are.
Hey,
all right.
Scott. What's up, brother?
Hey, I'm glad I had an opportunity to sit ringside here to watch the extended director's cut of the Atheist Experience.
Yeah.
It had action, it had drama, it had intrigue. I was riveted to the screen the whole time. So it was pretty amazing.
Thank you, man. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging out and being back up, man. That is a very important job, and we don't always thank people enough for that, man.
What was your take? What was your favorite or least favorite call?
Well, there were several that I really enjoyed hearing, but I want to give a special shout out to the first caller, Mason. I thought Mason's call was very. Even though he disagreed fundamentally with much of what we believe on the show, he was willing to talk about it. He was willing to examine his reasoning. He was willing to set aside his personal connection and his personal emotional ties. He was willing to explore, at least to some extent, hypotheticals and that kind of thing. And so that, to me, that showed a real honest intention to examine his own beliefs as well as yours. And I just really appreciated Mason's call. And so shout out to David, apparently Mason's friend who recommended him for the show. So yeah, so kudos there.
Totally agree, man. And because when we can have those conversations, they go well. I mean, as evidenced by today, like when we have somebody like that, we can make a lot of progress. And I think, honestly, guys, I really do think more often than not, we're going to see more eye to eye on things. And we're going to be able to, like with our one caller, Mike, we're going to be able to distinguish between the hypothetical harms that could happen in the future, which are absolutely things we need to have our philosophy in order for, get all that right. But let's actually take care of the fucking shit that's going on in front of us that we all clearly disagree on. You know, I think it's great, man. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I love doing this with you, Cross Examiner. It's been a minute, man. It's great. It's great to get to hang out with all of you guys and everybody out there in the TikToks and the YouTubes world. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We are going to be hanging out on TikTok a lot more, guys. We're going to be out here. So keep it tuned in, dialed in. Is that a thing? Dials aren't.
Let's say yes.
Right?
I'm gonna say yes on that.
Let me go grab my rotary phone and my fax machine too.
Channel.
Yeah. Fucking no, guys, hang out with us again. We will be back at this next Sunday, 4:30 p.m. Central. Again, remember, If you are in the Austin, Texas area, you need to go check out the Free Thought Library. There's all kinds of wonderful things happening on there, and you can easily find all that stuff on meetup.com. Also, if you're just not on meetup.com, it's actually pretty cool. There's a lot of really cool things in your area. So I'm not paid or anything, by the way. So I have forgotten how to get us the fuck out of here. I don't remember if I'm supposed to push a button or am I supposed to just wave?
Just say, and the crew
see you next
will
time.
magically transport us.
What
are we doing? Where did we go?
Magic.
Oh my God. What are those words?
I feel like I'm in a void or something. Is this what happens when you close it? You just stuck in purgatory?
I'm stuck under this graphic.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.